It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood, a wonderful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Would you be mine? It's a wonderful day for Phoebes to stream, a wonderful day for Phoebes. What will the chat be like tonight? Ha! I'm not that away, huh? Have you had a one who was a huh? Habba habba ha ha ha. Habba dabba ha? Halabada? Hadad? Adagaway ha? Tate ah. Hadabba habba ha. Name that reference. Hey, hello, welcome, greetings. Hearken to me. I feel like I'm plucking each little Japanese pond, setting you in my aquarium. That's actually the dog of wisdom. I'm hearkening hella hard. Oh, hearken harder. Oh, man. You're my favorite creature? Nice. I am definitely a creature. Peter Griffin. Peter Griffin. What's up, Bug Blaze? What's up, everybody? Hello, friends. Greetings. Little gay people in my phone. Did you hear Trump went to Scotland? He's being received pretty well over there, depending on the Griffer Peden. Oh my god. New character dropped. Griffer Peden. He's going to have to give it all. He's Scot. Aye. He's going to have to give it all. Do you know the way? I do know the way. Ugandan Knuckles. Man, I haven't heard a Ugandan Knuckles reference in a long time. What would a Scottish Trump sound like? I'm going to Scotland. You see, I'm going to be living here now. I'm going to be running the president of Scotland. I'm going to be running for that new position. People would say that I don't know anything about Scotland, but it turns out I know everything there is to know about Scotland. People say that my daddy was from Germany, but it wasn't. It was Scottish. They were Scots. And now I'm going to be the best president ever Scotland has seen. Trust me, I know Scottish presidents. Apparently, Scotland does not have a president. I'm going to be the best Scottish... What do they have? Prime Minister that they ever have seen. I'm going to be the best Scottish president they've ever seen. See, I can't do a Scottish Trump. I'm going to be the best Scottish president that they've ever seen. You've got to keep that nasally thing going the whole time, and that makes it kind of difficult to do. It kind of makes it sound Russian, actually. So, whatever. I'm not a great impressionist, never have claimed to be. Cute, yeah, right? Oh, look at you here still watching, though. Look at that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Whatever you gotta say to justify watching trans porn at 3 a.m. Whatever you have to tell yourself. Sending hate from Japan. Oh, I'll wipe my tears with my American dollars. I love it. Somebody from one of the colonies my country owns wants to talk shit to me. That's funny. You're a colony of the U.S. Don't talk to me. A Japanese person wants to step on American? Are you serious? Yes. I don't know if you heard about what happened in the 40s. Lots of damage, lots of destruction. We've got for all country. Some might say the whole countryside. Dude, Scottish Trump is the best fucking thing. Hit the gym? I'll hit your mom, but man, she's already fucking struggling, dude. I gotta tell you. It's literally a P.T. Barnum freak show trying to lecture people. You realize how much the fucking P.T. Barnum circus made off of the freak show? And you realize that the modern day freak show is pretty well paying too. I really don't care what view you see me in, as long as you're seeing me, you see? But nobody has called me a circus act yet, so I give you that for originality. Well, you got a job? Yeah. Speaking of job, make sure you guys hit the super chat button if you want to make sure your comment gets read. The chat goes by pretty fucking quickly here, and we don't always have the ability to read every single one. Whatever you say in super chat is not violatory of the TOS. I will read every single one. No matter how insulting or whatever it is, I don't care. As long as I can say it without violating the TOS, I will. When was this recorded? 1972? No, it was a little later than that, sometime in the early 80s. What's in the bowl? This is obviously dried jankum. Some dickhead's gonna be out there believing me. It's pot, bro. Come on, be real for a second. Be an adult. Pretend that you're a grown-up for 3 seconds, please. Excuse me. Where are you from? I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere. I don't know. I grew up between Mississippi and Missouri. I live in Mississippi now, but I spent most of the last 5 years living all over this great country. Most of my time has been spent between the Midwest and the South, though. This is who I imagine plays RuneScape. Well, that's really a bad impression because I've literally never picked up RuneScape. I'll cop to plenty of other games. Ark Survival Evolved, I've definitely no-lifed that game before. War Thunder, definitely no-lifed that game before. Team Fortress 2, I kind of no-lifed for like 2 months before I got sick of it. And now I'll still go back to it, but I never get that into it. World of Tanks, I used to be kind of obsessive about. Outside of that, and I'm trying to think of games that I've played regularly as an adult, because there were plenty of games that I played back when I was a kid that I was probably that way with, but that matters less when you're a teenager, you know? Do you support Palestine? What reasonable, rational person doesn't at this point? Honestly, in my mind, if you're fucking all about the state of Israel, if you're all about some kind of one-state solution that favors Israel, or if you're for some two-state solution that gives Israel increased power over the Middle East, I think you're just a heartless motherfucker at this point. I think that you have to be really fucking heartless and really fucking politically disconnected to even, think of simping for Israel at this late date and time. It's just absurd, the amount of destruction that's gone on over there. And now public opinion is starting to turn, both here in America and abroad. I mean, the UK is seeing this massive wave of protests about the Gaza issue, not least of all because the UK government, for some reason, decided to what was it called? Proscribe? Yeah, they decided to prescribe this organization. I think it's called Palestine Action. Can I just say, as an American, I support Palestine Action since the British government can't arrest me because we kicked out those motherfucking royalists about 200 years ago, something like that. About 250 years ago, we got up and kicked out the fucking royalists. So I can say proudly, I support Palestine Action. Sorry for all of you who in the UK would get arrested for saying something like that. But that's what the fucking UK government has decided is more important than honoring their fucking obligations under the Geneva Convention or anything else that says you need to intervene and stop it when an ally of yours is committing war crimes and genocide. Are you live right now? Yes, I'm live. How much do you make on YouTube? I'm not going to say specific numbers because that's kind of silly, but I've made a little bit off of YouTube. It's like equivalent to a part-time job, I guess. Here's a cute girl. What do you think Palestinians would do if you went there? Probably continue bleeding out and dying like they usually do. I don't think the Palestinians are in any fucking position to raise some kind of organized fight against a queer person that decides to visit Palestine. Sorry. Something tells me that a group of people who've been getting bombed with consistently increasing severity over the last 2 years, something tells me that they're going to have a lot more pressing concerns to their life and liberty and all of that happy horse shit than a queer person being amongst their midst. Something tells me that right now would actually be a pretty dope time to visit Palestine as a queer person, provided you stayed clear of any IDF strikes, which would be pretty difficult given that the IDF is not very reliable about telling people what's going to happen where. I'm going to have to turn on idiot mode, huh? The hate is getting them paid. I doubt they care. No, I actually like it. No, I'm actually totally happy with it. Quite the opposite reaction to what they want. I'm actually glad that there's a bunch of people spewing like hateful shit in here. Number one, it gives me something to respond to. As a queer advocate, it gives me a constant foil, right? It's hard to argue against the stupidest positions on the planet if you're not regularly getting bombarded with them. So that's good. But also their view counts and their view hours count just as much as anybody else's does. You don't have to like me for your ad revenue to go to me or for your YouTube subscription, your premium subscription. I get a little cut of that whenever you're watching my videos. It doesn't matter if you're, liking me, disliking me, not interacting with the content at all. It still all counts towards the same algorithm. So let me turn on idiot mode just so we can read what is actually going on. See here. Let's turn it to 5 minutes. That should we'll set it at 5 minutes at first, and then if that turns out to be too restrictive, we'll make it a little less. Excuse me. Thank fuck. Yeah, I'm sorry, Book Blaze. I know it can be hard to keep up the chat when it's going like that. When it finally gets to the point that I can't even read it, you gotta cut it off at that point. I'm sorry, but this is just what has to happen. Ooh, only real Phoebe fans here. Yeah, exactly. Only the real motherfuckers here this late at night. Nah, for real though, if you want to interact with the stream, please feel free to subscribe and hit the bell and do all that happy shit. I just literally cannot read the chat when it's going by that quick, so I have to do something to slow things down a little bit. And the 5-minute subscriber mode excludes most people that just want to be dipshits, Like most of the time, if somebody just wants to spam one word or throw in Jesus fucking references or throw in Bible quotes or whatever, that sort of thing is usually stopped by the sub mode. So subscribe and like the channel and do all that shit if you want to participate. And if you want to make absolutely sure that your question gets read, please consider sending a super chat. It really does. It helps out the channel immensely. It helps out me and my household personally because, everybody, including me and my household, works. This is my little part-time side gig because my main job is taking care of my kid. So I do this usually at night when he's asleep and with my partner. And, it really does help. It's a great way to make sure your question gets read too. Phoebe, do you ever let your hair down? I think it would be cute. Yeah, I can let my hair down. I love when the haters wait and subscribe. Me too, dude. I really do as well. But, okay, since there's a lot of requests, I'll let my hair down. It looks better when it's freshly washed, but I washed it yesterday, so it's fine. There we go. It does have a tendency to get in my mouth, though. I might end up having to set it on this side so the wind's buffeting it into my mouth, There we go. Phoebe, I'm a thin girl. Do you have any insights about fat phobia? Yeah, I mean, sure. I'm sure I do. Specific insights, though, you're going to have to ask me specific questions because it's kind of hard to know exactly what you mean by insights. But yeah, like I'm sure as a fat bitch, I can probably answer quite a few questions about fatphobia. Also, make sure you guys hit that like button. It really does help. Every single time you hit that like button is another chance to send this out to even more people, which increases the quality of your viewing pleasure by increasing the number of people interacting and engaging in the chat, which is another thing you can do to help make the stream interesting and keep things moving along, right? So hit the like button, participate in the chat, and super chat if you want to make sure your question gets read, or if you just want to say, hey, I support the channel, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, and, yeah. Trying to foster real conversations here with people that disagree with me. And people that agree with me, usually, but disagree on specific topics. I just like having interesting conversations with people who challenge me. Whatever way that direction, like whatever direction that challenge comes from, I'm happy with it. I'm also happy with people that want to back up my points in chat or whatever. I'm not trying to exclude you guys, I'm just saying. Your hair is so long. It's really not that long, but it's like, I think this is pretty much its terminal length. I've been growing it for like 6 or 7 years now, and this is basically how long it's been for like the last 2 years, I'd say. So I wonder what I disagree with you on. I don't know. Like, I'm sure if we went through every single political position out there and every single social position out there, we could probably land on something, Hope, but it'd be, we might have to go for quite a while to find something. Well, here's one that a lot of people end up disagreeing with me on. I think cars should be banned from cities. Like, I don't think that we should, like, ban them instantly. I think that we should build the infrastructure that would allow people to get around in a city without a car, and then ban cars from cities, right? And that is a hugely controversial take for a lot of people. A lot of people shit on me for that take, but it's one that I genuinely stand behind, and I fully support it. I think it would make things a lot more livable if you lived in a city or had to visit one regularly. Phoebe, you got some natural cute curls going on. Do you ever bring them out with gel or creams? No, I actually don't. I am very reticent to use products on my hair and shit because I've just seen so many people's hair fucked up with like bad products. And sometimes like a bad product can just be one that's bad for your hair in particular. And so I've just been afraid to like, experiment with anything to try and find some good products for my hair. But I'm sure I could find something and probably do some cute stuff with it. I probably should too, because a gel would have the added effect of holding these loose hairs together and holding these weird little loose clumps that just fly everywhere together. No, I don't think that's realistic at all. Nobody does, but I swear to God, dude. I swear to God, and I could explain it. I mean, we'll probably lose all of our viewers trying to explain it because it's very boring kind of policy level bullshit. But yeah, you build park and rides next to all the entrances and exits to the ring road that surrounds town. So anybody that needs to go around the town on the interstate or whatever, they just stay on the ring road and they go right around, no hindrance to them at all. Anybody that's coming into the city in particular is actually getting off the interstate before they ever get onto the ring road. They're getting off the interstate and going to a park and ride nearest whatever section of the interstate they're coming in on. They park their car, take an elevator down to the bus station or the train stop at the bottom of the park and ride, and then they go through the city doing what they need to do. We eliminate all of these car-dependent stroads and all of these like parking lots that are just like needlessly taking up space in a world where you don't have a bunch of cars going around in the city all the time. You would have like way more space for community gardens. You would have way more space for little places to set up like pop-up markets and things like that. You would have an opportunity to expand business in town. There would be so much that would be opened up by the fact that you no longer have cars in and of themselves, just people's personal fucking vehicles. You don't have those in town anymore. Like everything gets better. I don't know. It's kind of a magical solution, to be honest with you. I'm trans and I need advice. Let's see. I get bullied and she seems confident and I need tips for school. Right on. Okay. Yeah, no, honestly, I would say confidence, and this is going to sound maybe kind of, this might sound kind of snide or something, but confidence really is like a fake it till you make it kind of thing. Sorry, there's a train going by. Give me a second. Find people, content creators, celebrities, whatever, that are either like alternative women, or I'm assuming you're trans femme. So find like content creators, celebrities, people like that kind of thing that make public content that are either trans femme or kind of like alternative cis women that are allies, and like all of those people are different in their own unique ways, but all of them share one thing, which is charisma and gravitas, you know. And if you can it's not like you're trying to get like an exact study of their behaviors or anything like that, but watching and listening to people like that can give you an idea of what confidence looks like. Part of confidence is being able to look people in the eyes. Part of confidence is being able to look like you're engaged in the conversation and like staying engaged in the conversation. A big part of confidence is giving other people the time to speak, right? And that's something a lot of people kind of skew over. And that's the difference between a confident versus an obnoxious person. You know, a confident person will give the other person an opportunity to speak, which in itself can be such a power move. And there's a lot of other strategies that go into confidence. So I would just have to tell you that the best advice I could give you, if you're trying to build your confidence, genuinely is like thinking better about yourself, thinking that you're a person who deserves to be confident, because you are. Whoever you are, I guarantee you're not such an evil person that you should feel bad about yourself just for existing. So be confident in your ability to exist as a human being who is completely valid and has every fucking civil right that any other person does. And it's not like you're asking yourself to be super fucking like proud of yourself or whatever. It's not like you're asking yourself to lay on the fucking butter or whatever. But yeah. That's a great point, Phoebes. Confidence is seldom awfully self-centered when it comes from genuine inner well-being. Well, yeah. I mean, true confidence is something I think is developed over the process of trying to practice confidence. I think it's a learned skill. I don't think it's necessarily something that people are born with or anything like that. But yeah, like the healthier you are mentally, and it's kind of like a tautology. The more confident you are in yourself, the more confident you will be. So the more confident you are, the more confident you are, if that makes sense. You need to believe in yourself first and foremost. And I know that sounds cliched, I know that sounds bogus, but it really, like, you need to believe in yourself for whatever you are. Maybe you're not the greatest thing since sliced bread, but there's something you're good at. There's something you're good at. There's something you like to do. There's something that you're passionate about. And like, your identity is a part of your life that is as valid for you to take pride in as any other fucking thing, in my opinion. And you need to accept what you are, who you are, and how you want to be before you ever, like, master that ability. What labels do you put yourself under? I used to identify as bisexual, and I guess I still do because that's the terminology that I grew up with, but I guess I would be identified as pansexual because, like, I don't really care, you know, as far as, like, genitals and sex makeup and how that conforms to a person's gender identity. I really don't give a shit about all that shit, honestly. I'm just looking for someone that is, like, interesting to me and kind, and, like, there's some other things I'm looking for, you know, but ultimately, like, genitalia is not that important for me in a potential life partner. Why don't you believe in God? Genuinely curious. Why do you assume I don't believe in God? Let me ask you that. Before I answer your question, what makes you so sure that I don't believe in God? Morning, Phoebes. Coffee is brewing. It's Sunday. I'm rolling a fat one. May I say deep confidence comes from burning all reflections, acting without considering any thoughts, no ego? I don't know, because I think, like, a lot of confident people deeply consider other people's thoughts, right? A lot of confident people are perfectly empathetic. I think maybe what you mean is they don't consider people's reactions to be the primary driver of the things they do. I think that might be a more apt way to put it. Because, yeah, I think a confident person does, like, mostly what they want to do, but I will also say that a confident person, their desires, like their behavioral desires, tend to align pretty well with what is socially appropriate for the situation. That's part of being confident as well, is knowing, like, basically knowing to what degree you can be yourself, and knowing when to not even involve yourself in a specific environment because it's just not for you and it's just not right. You couldn't, you know, like, there's a lot that goes into it. Let me see here. Because God made you as you are, and if you change that, you clearly don't feel fear, hell, or prosecution. Well, William, I would argue that God made me trans. I would argue that you have no evidence from the Bible or otherwise to say that God doesn't make people trans. You have no reason from the Bible or otherwise, nothing except the opinions of man, to tell you that I am any less valid in the eyes of God than any other woman. That is not something that you have extracted from the Bible. That is something you have extracted from the perceptions of man. But for the record, yes, I am an atheist, at least in the sense that I don't believe in the God of Abraham as described in the modern Bible, as it's come down to us through the ages. Do I think maybe the original writers of the Bible might have been onto something? Maybe, possibly. I don't know. I think there's a lot of weird sort of philosophical truth to a lot of the writings of the ancients, not just the Bible, not just the books that make up the modern Bible, but, well, the, books that make up the books that make up the modern Bible, because it really is a long-ass lineage. A lot of people don't like that fact just by itself. By the way, make sure you guys hit that like button. It really does help. Every single time you hit that like button, it's another chance to send the stream out to even more people, which increases the quality of your viewing pleasure by increasing the number of people interacting in the chat. So please hit that button. It really does help. Also, if you want to send a super chat, that is the best way to make sure your message gets read. I do read every single one as long as you don't violate TOS. And it's a great way to support the channel, too. God would have just made you a girl instead of trans. Trans was created by humankind, not God. Where's your evidence for that? Once again, the opinion of man. I hear an opinion of man, but I'm not hearing a Bible verse. I'm not hearing chapter and verse. I'm hearing the opinions of man. I'm hearing your exegesis, and you're not even willing to tell me the fucking verse and chapter that you're pulling it from. Why would I believe you over my own capacity to read? What's up, Baha? I really do need to listen to that thing you wrote or sent me and shit. We need to get moving on that. I keep forgetting about it. I've been in procrastination mode for like 2 months. Ah, yes, the infallible argument. Skull emoji. Well, that's why I didn't even respond to him, because it's like, if you're too retarded to even type something that is an actual argument, I don't know why I would argue with you. I don't know why I would give you my time. So, question, what is your view on what trans means? So, thank you for the $2. I appreciate that. If anybody else wants to super chat, make sure you hit that button. It really does help. And it's a great way to get your question read and answered, as I'm about to do for Lexi. So, what trans means, like, basically, right? And I'm not a medical professional, but there are people about 0.06, roughly over 1%, depending on which study you read, right? Numbers range, but it's between 0.06% of the population and 1.6 or something like that. And around that percentage of the population has something called gender dysphoria, which leads to us feeling deeply uncomfortable with what we see in the mirror based on what we were raised as. We were born with a penis and we were raised as a boy, and everything we do is related to, like, reinforcing that, and everything we're expected to do, right, is in some way subtly what they are, what they like, and what they were raised to be in life. But some people, like I said, between 0.06 and 1.6, people like me, trans people, feel a deep, deep, deep disconnection from that. A deep sense of disconnection from that, and a deep dysphoria, which means a disconnection to the point of annoyance, frustration, paranoia. We feel that deep dysphoria between who we actually want to be, how we actually want to live, and the body that we were born into. And there's also a physical disconnection between what we want to see in the mirror and what we actually see, what we want other people to perceive about us and what they do perceive about us. Honestly, people send a lot of transphobia my way. but nobody can comment on my hair being masculine because while it might be a bad hairdo, whatever, I'm not that great at cutting my own bangs. I'll be goddamned if someone's going to call this a masculine hairstyle. It's just not, right? So people can say whatever they want about me being trans, but it just tells me that they know that I'm a trans woman, and that at some level, they know that I see myself as a woman. That's what's important to me. And that relieves my dysphoria in a way that nothing else ever managed to. No amount of wearing more androgynous clothes, no amount of living around more accepting people was ever enough to assuage that anxiety in me that came from this fundamental disconnection between my body and my brain. Coming out and dressing how I want to, talking how I want to, gesticulating how I want to, etc., allowed me to stay in touch with myself and to actually be a better and truer version of myself. And that is what being trans means to me. Trans ideology came about during the hippie movement? That's not true at all. That's not true at all. Do you know that the Nazis literally burned a bunch of fucking scientific work that had been done into the field of transgenderism? So we're talking about work that had been done in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. What are your thoughts on feminism, and what does feminism mean to you? I think feminism is like too broad a topic to have like one general kind of set of thoughts on. I'm a big fan of feminism. I think its various different waves have been incredibly useful in advancing the cause of women, because women have been, at least in Western society, in a very fucking disadvantaged role, despite us being like a slight majority of the population. So I think it's 100% a valid pursuit. I would call myself a feminist, but I do have some criticisms of certain, like, excuse me, like a minority of third wave feminists mostly, and a minority of third and fourth wave feminists have taken to calling themselves trans exclusionary radical feminists. And I've always obviously got an issue with them, because it honestly bothers me that they don't seem to see the fact that so many of the fucking things so many of their arguments rely on reinforcing sexist tropes about women that have existed for hundreds and hundreds of years that feminists fought against for the last 150 years. And so to me, it seems like a massive hypocrisy, and I have a problem with that particular branch of modern feminism, but that's not the broad swath of modern feminism. Most modern feminists are trans inclusive. God, that's a fucking difficult set of words. Or maybe I'm just stoned. But the point is, I think the modern movement is mostly okay. Have some weird ideas came out of the feminism movement in the last 10 years? 100%, right? A lot of that was revealed during like the anti-SJW era. A lot of that stuff was talked about. But I got news for you. A bunch of weird fucking ideas come out of every fucking branch of politics. Name me a branch of politics, I'll tell you about some motherfuckers involved in that branch of politics that are fucking wingnut slapdash crazy. You're not going to go to some kind of highly political motherfucker and find a sane person 9 times out of 10. Like people that are like super uber duper political, and I don't think that means they can't do good work. But I'm just saying, there's comes like a level of craziness with people that want to be that involved with this broken ass system. Oh boy, I literally can't even. I can't even tell what's going on in the chat right now. I'm gonna switch over to all messages. So actually, I'm gonna switch over to fan funding first. Do you think most men become trans because they feel oppressed? No. I mean, like, the statistics prove that like 99.9% of men don't transition. So like, they must not feel very oppressed. I don't think that there's any of that, honestly, that happens, because like the inconvenience that comes from being trans outweighs any potential advantage that you might get from being like part of a new inclusive in-group. Like the trans community, the pro-queer community, the queer advocacy community mostly exists in big cities and online. So if you're looking to get like props online like live online and never do anything IRL. I guess maybe pretending to be trans might potentially make some social sense for somebody like that, but most people aren't like that. I mean, I'm not like that, for example, and as a result, I haven't been like actively inconvenienced by the fact that I've been trans, but every time I go into public, I live in the deep south, so every time I go into public, I'm dealing with a few people that want to give me dirty looks, Like I said, none of that's escalated into violence or inconvenience, but it's still a potential threat that I always know is there. And nobody's going to want to deal with that sort of thing to, checks notes, get a slight advantage in some online communities. Gotcha. Like, some of you guys have to be, like, I have to assume you are super fucking terminally online if you consider that any kind of victory or any kind of goal worth pursuing. If you would throw away your entire outside social life and have to rebuild it from the ground up because you want to win in an online argument every so often, you're a fucking terminally online retard, and I can't help you. Deep South. Thank you, Frey, for the donation. We're sitting here in the deep south, where the swamp grows so putrid, and the humidity flows through the day. Hell yeah, thank you, Frey. I always appreciate it. Thank you so much for the $10. Always a legend. I always appreciate it. Have you tried therapy to help with your psychosis? Maybe get off the weed, that escalates it too. I'm not psychotic, so I don't really need to see a therapy to help with my psychosis. As for seeing a therapist to help with my gender transition, that was actually a part of the first time I got HRT. And you know what they concluded? That I needed HRT. So I've already been through the mental health care you would have wanted me to see, and unfortunately, the American healthcare system, really none of the Western countries' healthcare systems, agree with you that being trans is some kind of psychosis. In fact, all of them collectively agree that being trans is a perfectly valid medical condition whose optimum treatment includes sex reassignment surgery, hormone replacement therapy, and allowing the trans person to live as the gender that they identify with. Cost-effective gender-affirming things help. Shit. Amazon, honestly, is probably going to be a pretty good bet. I know it's a shitty company, but sometimes that's the best place to go for, effective and affordable, gender dysphoria help things, Like, why can't I think? Like, gender-affirming care, yeah. Like, gender-affirming care products, like wearables and things like that, probably Amazon. I know there are some companies that specifically make stuff for trans people, by trans people, that kind of thing, but I think those tend to be a little more expensive. But there might be one of them out there that's got that's got affordable options. It would be really nice if Jessica was in here right now, because I bet she'd know. Hi, Spooks. I knew you'd be back. How could you not? I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of hilarious. They just assumed you're literally psychotic. Oh, I know. It's insane. Christ is king? Well, I don't agree, but I do appreciate the $2, and thank you for the super chat. If anybody else wants to do it, make sure you send the, if anybody wants to make sure your message gets read, make sure you send a super chat. It's the greatest way to do it, because I always read them, as long as they're not violative of TOS in some way. Unknown, I made specific arguments against you, and your pussy ass didn't even respond directly. You responded with a bunch of skull emojis, so don't be in here talking shit like you've got some position of fucking superiority over me, dumbass. I love how many people are subbing. Oh, me too. When did you start your live today? About 40 minutes ago. Why? Let's see here. There we go. I'm changing it to 1 minute so we can get even more of these morons subbed up. Do you think there will ever be equality while being safe because fake trans take advantage of the label? No. No, that's literally not a non-problem, Lexi. The fact of it is, trans people are way more likely to be assaulted in a public place than we are to assault someone in a public place. That's just the fucking cold, hard truth of it. This non-existent epidemic people are always talking about of trans women going into women's restroom to hurt them is a non-existent problem that people have been fear-mongered into believing because everybody decides to, for whatever reason, believe their drunk cousin's story sitting around a bonfire about how he heard some rumor about some girl getting assaulted in a bathroom by a trans woman, and for some reason they never believe old Cletus any other time. Any other time he's considered an unreliable narrator, but for some reason when it comes to something that justifies their hateful narrative about trans people, they're all too willing to pass this shit around as if it's truth. And so everybody's going around citing their own little personal anecdotes about bullshit that never happened because the statistics bear it fucking out. The statistics bear it fucking out. And like, there is never a more likely rapist to get caught than one who does it in a public restroom. That's another fucking statistical fucking verifiability thing. Like, you can just fucking look that shit up. Did you know the red pill from the Matrix is a reference to HRT? So cool. Get wrecked in cells. Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, did you know that the Matrix was written by 2 trans women? A lot of people don't, but it was. Nicotine or weed? ¿Por qué no dos? I swear incense are mimetic hazards. What? Incense? I like incense. But I'm kind of a hippie, so... Of course I like incense. Make sure you guys hit that like button, by the way. Every single time you hit that like button is another chance to make this stream even better by virtue of its chat getting larger and more participatory. It actually happened, though, many times. Don't you think there should be safe spaces for both trans and non? It hasn't happened many times. Once again, the statistics on this are fucking... They're not set in stone, but they haven't changed much over the years. In fact, the problem has gotten worse for trans people. So trans people are now more likely to be assaulted sexually or otherwise in a public place, almost more likely than any other demographic, for being honest, just in general. But we are more likely to be assaulted in a public place than we are to, to assault someone by like a fucking profound margin. If you want to look at who's actually a danger in public places, including restrooms, it's cis men. I hate to, like, fight the patriarchy or whatever on live, but if we're going to delineate by gender, it seems only fair to actually talk about what the real fucking numbers on this shit say. And the real numbers on this shit say that you are way more likely to assault a trans person than you are to ever be assaulted by one. No one wants to even get near you, let alone assault you. That's fucking hilarious considering how many friends I have. That's literally hilarious considering how many friends I have and how many people regularly come in here seeking advice and talk about how my advice helped them. But hey, you do you. You apparently receive a great deal of satisfaction and happiness in your life from being a hateful little bigoted weirdo online. Now, I personally would question the long-term sustainability of this behavior as well as its long-term positive or negative effects. I think that this sort of thing could probably be pretty deleterious to someone's mental health in the long term. But as long as it continues working for you, I'm happy to provide that little punching bag because you know what? Once again, your view hours count just as well as anybody else's does. And your sub will be used to push my channel out to the algorithm just like anybody else's would. So I appreciate your support. You call internet people your friend? I'm not talking about just internet people, but I'm bringing up people on the internet who also seem to be perfectly comfortable with me. No, I don't have that many friends IRL. A lot of my friends are long distance, but a lot of those I have met. So, I don't know. I don't know if that counts to you, but it counts to me. Like one of my closest friends, I don't talk to them like every fucking week at this point, but we talk pretty often, and we talk for a really long time whenever we do, is a girl that I met a bunch of times back when I was living on the road. We hung out a bunch of times IRL. Our friendship started online, but then we, met up and hung out, went camping together and shit, and then, you know, we've remained friends ever since, so. I have a hot take. I think we should expand fat phobia as a label to weight-based discrimination. As a 110-pound trans femme, I do experience discrimination for my weight and build. Well, that's the fucking thing. That's why the term body shaming exists, right? And that's basically the term you're looking for. Body shaming is making someone feel bad for the fact that they happen to be skinny or they happen to be fat or something like that. And I am against body shaming in general. In general, I think it's not a good way to start off a conversation. Now, that said, if someone body shames you, I think you are totally valid in body shaming them. If somebody's being hateful, I think that that's one of the tactics that you're not that scummy for pulling out. I've definitely pulled it out before, but I try to reserve it for times when somebody else brings that up, right? I try not to be the first person to go there, because I think being the first person to attempt that attack always makes you look bad. I don't think it ever makes you look good in an argument to do that. So I try to be responsive about that kind of thing rather than being the initiator of it. But yeah, I agree with you ultimately. I don't think it's right to make fun of somebody for being super fucking skinny. Maybe there's like a degree of that. Like, people will make fun of like meth heads and shit, and sometimes I kind of like giggle at that, even though I understand that being addicted to meth is nothing fun, and it's probably not something we should make fun of in general. But I also, I've been inconvenienced by enough meth heads in my life, I guess, to find some kind of like passive relief or some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. But like a little bit of satisfaction every so often when somebody makes like a tweaker joke or whatever. And a lot of times that has to do with them being super skinny. But I always end up feeling a little bad about it afterwards, because I always think, what if that person is just a regular old skinny person that has like a hormonal issue or something like that? Because hormonal issues that make you skinny are actually more common than ones that make you fat. Like, statistically, you're more likely to have a hormonal issue that makes you unable to gain enough weight. But that's because people who have like bodies that are a complete result of some kind of hormonal issue are pretty rare in general, Like, every fat fuck on the planet wants to say their fat is because of hormones or because of some kind of imbalance or some shit like that. But most of that shit's self-diagnosed. They don't know that shit for real. And I guarantee you, if you looked at most of their lives, you would find a bunch of fucking fat-ass eating habits. You know how I know? Because I'm a fat ass. And I've dated a lot of fat asses in my life. And I've known and been friends with a lot of fat asses in my life. You know why we're fat? It's a combination of calories and, like, not enough mobility. For me, I get around. I take care of all the animals on our farm and stuff like that. And I'm up and moving around a lot during the day because I'm like cleaning the house, taking care of the kid, etc. But like, I'm not out there running marathons or anything like that. And when it comes to my lunch, I'm apt to eat leftovers from whatever was for dinner last night. And our dinners are always like calorically dense, southern soul food kind of shit. We cook at home a lot, so we're eating healthier food, but I'm apt to cook for an army, so is my mom, so is everybody else that cooks in the house. And I'm apt to eat like there's enough to go around for everybody, because there is. And that's why I'm fat, I don't have any particular addiction to sweets. I do drink a lot of calories that I probably shouldn't, right? But when it comes to like candy bars and shit like that, ice cream, that's never been my kryptonite. Mine is calorically dense, soul food, southern food, things like that. Is there enough though? Well, there always is. I know it seems like every fat ass could probably eat like an entire pot of beans, but our stomachs aren't quite that big. You realize the stomach does not actually take up this entire role, right? You realize the stomach's just like a little small section of that. The rest of it's all intestines and fat and shit like that. Sorry to have to give you an anatomy lesson. I know that kind of thing's kind of gross on live, but I had to do it. I'm fat because of chocolate, ice cream, and pies. Cakes and pies, cakes and pies. Yeah, no, I mean, everybody's got their vice, right? And I don't fucking blame or judge anybody for that shit, because I know that I'm fucking victim of it just as much as anybody else is. And I know that I fall prey to those cravings just as much as anybody else does. I just have a different way of answering it than the conventional fat person that people think of when they think of fatness. But I think that's why, that's why I kind of think that in general we should try and strive to not body shame each other, and we should try and have more honest and open conversations about weight gain and weight loss, and like being fat versus being skinny. I think we should I'm a big supporter of open conversation in general, and this is one of those areas in which I think the human race and fucking society in general could benefit a tremendous amount just from having honest conversations about this. Like, why are we fat? Why are we skinny? Why are we this? Why are we that? What do we think the reasons are? What do dietitians think about that? Like, it's time to take those sorts of issues from being something that you have to talk about in clinical terms to being something people can talk about in conversational terms. Because I feel like plenty of people are watching doctors' different opinions on diets and things like that, and bodybuilders and all these fucking different types of things, but we're not hearing from a lot of like actual fucking people about what the experience of being this or that or the other thing is actually like. And if we're not getting that perspective, if that's not part of the societal conversation, then we're going to have a skewed way of dealing with it as a people. No, I don't lie, Phoebe. I truly don't understand how you can debate for so long without simply wanting to slap someone and walk away. We'll hope that's because I think I'm better than everyone I meet. I mean, I wish it, like, would that it was some other way, No, I don't think I'm better than everybody I meet, but I do think that I'm usually smarter than any given person who's just gonna disagree with me off the bat. That's my fucking thing, and maybe that's a superiority complex. Maybe that's a bit of elitism. But I think it's like borne out in the conversations that I have, the arguments that I go through, that a lot of the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis when it comes to arguing with people in these chats, a lot of them just take issue with me directly from the beginning, right? And that sort of thing is a weakness in my mind. As soon as I've identified that in you, as soon as I've identified in you the inability to give someone a chance to explain who they are, to give someone a chance to be who they are, to give someone a chance to answer like questions about how they feel, as soon as I detect in you the complete unwillingness to give people a chance, and like a giant assumption machine that just reads a bunch of shit into somebody because you saw a couple of things in their background, I can tear into that like a fucking pit bull. And it's a weak of fucking, or I'm sorry, it's a sign of weak and low intelligence, in my opinion. Because someone that is like trying to approach the conversation in as intelligent a manner as possible is going to be interested in hearing the other person's perspective. They're going to be interested in knowing what the fuck they have to say. They're going to be interested in getting an unvarnished and self-explained view of that person's perspective. Not saying that you have to like treat every single thing that way. There are plenty of things that don't deserve that much consideration. But if you're trying to have a conversation with another person, right? If you're actually trying to talk to them in some way, I think that there's a burden on those speakers to take one another seriously, or as seriously as they can. Do you think everyone needs to agree with social standards, or is it okay to disagree even if it goes against your own morals? I think it's 100% okay to disagree, um, but that's the thing. Um, if it's okay to disagree, it's going to be okay to have a bunch of arguments about it, and I think those arguments will eventually start to play out in real life. And I think that that's when a societal narrative will actually be established on this particular issue. Because as of right now, most people, push comes to shove, respect the identity of a trans person. Most people, push comes to shove, don't press the issue. No matter how they feel online, no matter how they talk on Facebook, most people don't press the issue. But eventually, these arguments are going to start to happen on offline. And the more those things happen, the more those arguments take place, I think the more that we're going to see how society is actually going to deal with this issue going forward. Now, what I think is that it's going to basically go back to the way it is now, where people, but better, like I think that the having of the argument is going to like lead to an improvement in the situation, but I think it's going to require some growing pains where people are like annoyed with it and angry at the fact that trans people have more representation now. And I think it's important that we have that argument out. I think it's totally okay to disagree, especially because if not, hold on, how do I put this? I think it's really good to disagree, not least of all because disagreement gives a platform for a better position, right? If you're good at rhetoric, if you're good at responding to bad positions, then someone having a bad argument is it's a perfect time for you to present your better, smarter argument. Are you still obsessed with this, or can we act like fun? What? Come again? I couldn't square the circle of God being evil by his own definition. Well, yeah, I mean, like, that's just one of the many fucking weird little hypocrisies about religion that make people leave the Christian faith. For me, it was the fear of hell. It was the fear of hell and being told by my mom, you don't have to believe in this. It's not, because she wasn't the one taking me to church. My dad had wanted me to go to church because my grandma wanted me to go to her church. And so I did, up until the time I was like 12 or 13, and then I started getting fucking terrified of church. I started getting terrified of the Bible and church because I was reading the Bible legitimately. And the more I read, the more scared I got. And the closer I got to the end of it, the more I wanted out. And eventually my mom saw the effect that this was having in my life. I was having a hard time sleeping. I was having panic attacks about it. And she was like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to believe in this. It's not, I mean, I was raised like a variety of this, and I don't believe it anymore, basically. And that made me feel a lot better about it because it made me feel like, okay. And then she explained, there are countries all over the world that don't believe in this particular version of reality. Who's right? And I was like, okay, you're right. Then I asked her what she believed, and she was like, yeah, I believe there's a God, but I don't think there's any hell or anything like that. I don't believe a benevolent God would create a hell. I think that God was benevolent in giving us all this nature and beauty that we see around us, all these plants that we can grow and all that stuff. And I think the humans have done a lot to fuck it up. But I don't think that God created some kind of punishment zone that we go to when we die. I think that'd be pretty fucked up and evil. And I was like, okay, and that's a very shortened version of what she would say she believes. Hopefully someday I'll get her on the stream again, and I can let you guys ask her some questions about it. But knowing that helped me. Knowing that I didn't have to believe helped me a lot when I was a kid. My mom would agree, Phoebes. Yeah, I think it's a much more peaceful and agreeable version of belief in God than what a lot of people profess online, at least in here. Excuse me. What do you believe now? I don't know, Lexi. I don't think human beings are it. If you're asking me, do I think there's a higher power? I would say yes, but there's just a few obvious ones, right? So I don't think it means much to say yes, there's a higher power. You ask me if there's a higher power, I'm like, well, fucking duh. Are you the universe? No. Are you the planet even? No. You're just another collection of stardust. In fact, you're pretty small in comparison to the fucking entire giant planet that you occupy. You're just one tiny little small itty bitty portion of that. Even of your own country, you're a tiny little bitty infinitesimally small fucking portion of that. You're just one little fucking speck of stardust in all of this fucking crazy vast nonsense. So what makes you think you're any better than any of it? What, because you can fucking build a lathe? I'm supposed to be impressed by that? A termite can build a nest that's fucking like 16 feet in length from top to bottom and has giant fucking tunnels. Trees can create clonal colonies that stretch for miles and miles. Mushrooms can engage in weird nutrient sex with trees. Well, like, there's a lot of impressive shit going on in nature. Am I supposed to be impressed by the fact that human beings can do a couple of things, like, technologically? I'm not. I'm just not impressed by that, in terms of it being something that sets us apart from nature in a significant enough way. I get how it does in some ways, but I don't think that it places us outside of the realm of nature. I don't think that it places us outside of its grips, certainly, because we keep on losing buildings and property to tornadoes and hurricanes and shit like that. If we had a handle on nature, if we had a handle on the environment or anything like that, something tells me those things would have become pretty rare by now. But they're not. They're a yearly occurrence. I never really hated a one true God, but the God of the people I hated. Yeah, that's a good quote, actually. That's a really good quote, actually. I hope Christ finds you. I'm praying for you. Well, I think you should look a little deeper and ask me some questions about my broader philosophy or my opinion on some political issues, and I think you might find that there's quite a bit of Christ already in my philosophy. And I was raised with Christ. I'm not going to be reintroduced to him. Thoughts on Andrew Tate? The weird Romanian sex trafficker? Dumbass, out-of-touch white boy? I don't know. Insufferable dude with a podcast? Claims to be against the elite and shit while, like, engaging in their fucking game. Engaging in many of their same tactics and, fucking, what would you call it? Pastimes. If religion was not in place, the world would be more dark. We would probably kill each other on the first day. I don't think that's true at all. Religion itself has led to profound amounts of death all over this planet, and all throughout human history, too. He's not even that white? Well, okay, fair enough. Isn't he actually kind of like Middle Eastern? Isn't he like Eastern European / Middle Eastern, something like that? Do you think we should tax the rich more than everyone else? Yes. Yes. It only makes more sense. That makes more sense than taxing the fucking working class more than everybody else. The rich people are the ones who are benefiting most from all of this shit. It's rich people and the corporations that they own and control that benefit from improvements to roads most, because it's cheaper for them to haul their products. They spend less on vehicle maintenance. Or the companies that they contract through spend less on vehicle maintenance, and their contract costs less in negotiations later. It's corporations and rich people that benefit most from every little infrastructure project that taxes go to support. Anytime a public school gets better, the rich people who have the money for private tutors and shit like that to augment public education benefit even more than regular poor people do from the benefits of those schools, because they're not lacking any of the critical bits of like home infrastructure. that make those sorts of changes really fucking take off and elevate a student's life. They're not dealing with any of the social ills that prevent a student from properly accessing the breadth and width of their education. Whenever the military gets a higher budget, it's rich people that are juiced in with the military-industrial complex that are getting fucking rich off the back of that. It's they that fucking stand to benefit from that kind of thing, not the American taxpayer, who is no more protected by that $1,000 fucking coffee mug than they would have been with a $15 coffee mug. Tate is mixed black and white. Is he really? I could have swore he was fucking Middle Eastern. Like mixed Middle Eastern. Which I still consider pretty much white. I mean, it really depends on what that given Middle Eastern ethnicity's relationship with the U.S. is at any given time, you know? Like right now, Saudis are white because we're in good with the Saudis. And, you know, like, let's see, there's some other fucking countries we're juiced in with over there, right? The Qataris, you know, Qatari. Okay, they're basically white, right? We're going through the, you know, we're adding certain Middle Eastern ethnicities to the white pack right now. In America, at least. What the fuck is that take? What? Do I need to quote the Bible at you guys? What is that fucking verse? I can't think of it. It's slipping my mind. I can't think of it now. God damn it. Of course it would slip my mind at the right, just the wrong moment. Very active chat for 40 viewers. Look at that, you know. I mean, I'm an interesting fuck that encourages a lot of conversation, but 37 viewers is a really low view count. We should really get that up. Share the fucking stream. Hit the like button. Send a super chat. Do something. Rescue me from obscurity. What do you think about Trump? I was more hopeful for his candidacy, I'll be honest, before he allowed the U.S. to strike Iran, and before he continued weapons shipments to Ukraine, and before he continued allowing Israel to bomb the fuck out of Palestine, and now, at this point, has, along with Israel, stepped away from peace talks with Hamas. So now, who the fuck knows what's going to happen to the Palestinians? I assume the fucking conflict is just going to resume at full strength. Things are going to keep going down and getting worse until, like, it's going to take some kind of coalition of Western countries or developed countries or something stepping in directly on the behalf of the Palestinians, and then it's going to be all-out war. Because Israel is in NATO, I'm pretty sure. I don't know that for sure, but isn't Israel protected by NATO the same way? Like, maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't think they are, actually. But it's definitely not going to be met with nothing. If China decides to start attacking Israel, or like fighting the Palestinians fight in Palestine, it's going to lead to a massive fucking all-out conflict between Israel and China, and the U.S. is going to have to step in on the behalf of Israel, and then it's going to be all-out war between U.S. and China. So, like, either way does not, like, there's no way out of this conflict now that isn't gruesome and bloody, and I think that's largely the fault of people like Trump. I think Benjamin Netanyahu is a very fucking Trump-like figure, and I think that Trump is, you know, well, he's Trump. He's fucking not interested in a, like, complex solution that lays out a little compromise where he doesn't want it to exist. He's got this rigid fucking idea of how things are going to go, and if they don't go his way, I'm not interested. And so he's walking away from the only fucking chance that there is for this conflict to end without further bloodshed. And I think that's tremendously sad. As for his domestic policy, I wasn't expecting much with Trump, I'll be honest with you. I think Trump was a pretty unpromising candidate when it came to the working class. He offered a lot of what seemed like populist like policies, but a lot of them ultimately were just bullshit. Bullshit that was only meant to be around as long as he's around. The implication being that at some point he's going to challenge the constitutionality of electing him to a third term, and he's going to make that a thing, and then try and run for a third term so that he can extend these tax cuts for the working class, because all of them are set to expire at the end of his presidency, unlike his tax cuts for the rich and billionaires and the corporations, which are supposed to last indefinitely. I think he's in many of those ways, I think he's a standard cut rate Republican that just happens to be crazy enough to actually pursue a lot of these policies and is not close enough to the Democrats to care about any kind of potential political damage from it, nor do I think he fancies a career in politics going forward. I don't actually think he'll end up going for the third term. I think it's maybe something that's crossed his mind, but I think that his decline at this point probably shows that at some point within the next 3 years, he'll start losing cognizance towards to the point where they'll have to kind of slowly do what they did with Biden, where they're barely wheeling him out, and they're barely letting him talk and make pronouncements and shit like that. And I don't think he'll end up running for a third term in that case, but maybe he will. Maybe he fucking will. But I guarantee you the rhetoric has been... it keeps getting brought up. It keeps getting brought up. And people keep talking about him challenging the constitutionality of it. I think he will if he's got enough support by the time that comes around. But I also think that this Epstein shit could crater any ability he has to challenge the constitutionality of the two-term limit thing, right? I would have said 2 months ago, yeah. Now... I don't really know, man. There are a lot of fucking people. There's a lot of chaos in Washington right now over the fact that Trump's DOJ does not seem to be very forthcoming about the fucking Epstein evidence, despite the fact that Trump and his campaign ran on the principle of fucking opening this shit up for investigation and letting the public know what the public needs to know and what is known about these fucking leaders of theirs that were sniffing around on Pedo Island. It's something that would change politics overnight. And so I don't know why anyone was actually expecting Trump to do it. I kind of halfway expected him to do it because I thought, well, hell, maybe he's just fucking crazy enough to do it. And maybe he's not on the papers in a way that would be incriminating in that way. But now I'm 100% confident that he is in those fucking files in a way that is deeply incriminating. That is the only reason I can conceive of for why he would be so tight-lipped about it, as far as not releasing any of the files or ordering them to be released or anything like that. I think that's the only reason why he would be defensive in the way he's been. I think he must be deeply criminally implicated by that investigation. And he and his administration are trying all of their weight and fighting against internal fucking, internal dissent, basically, to get this to remain private information, to get this to remain something that the American public is not fully abridged of. And I think it'll be a fucking miracle for the American government if some fucking hacker group doesn't release this shit within the next month or two. I think it's gonna fucking come out. Trump's trying to distract with this fucking Scotland trip, and the media, for whatever reason, is playing right into his hands. But I don't think it's gonna work. I think the American people are gonna be on this one for a while, because our collective ADHD just doesn't seem to be kicking in with this Epstein shit. I hope the draft comes back for pussies like you. Man, that's fucked up. You would send my ass to a war zone because you don't like me? That's kind of fucked. For the record, I wouldn't send you to a war zone just because I don't like you. Genuine question. Thoughts on gang members and gang conflicts in California, and what do you think should be done about it? I'll be honest with you, I don't know that much about California politics or how things go down in California. I do know that if you look at what people have, people in the know, right? If you look at people with high-level leadership positions in detective agencies and things like that, if you look at what they say about gang membership and things like that, there's a huge coincidence between between gang membership and poverty, between gang membership and over-policed or under-policed communities. And that sort of thing is something you can address with policy, but there have also been arguments that it depends on like the legal environment that exists in any given community. It depends on like it can be exacerbated sometimes by extra strict gun laws because it can create more of a black market, whereas a more relaxed set of gun laws allows more people to defend themselves legally and to therefore be protected from prosecution while also remaining capable of defending themselves, right? There's all kinds of arguments from all sorts of directions on the political aisle as to what should be done about the issue, but the one thing that seems to exist in common between all semi-organized crime, I guess you'd call it, like gangland activity, the common thread that runs through all of it is poverty. So it seems to me like fix the poverty, you probably fix a lot of the system. Probably fix a lot of the problem. Sorry about that, y'all. My phone died. What's up, everybody? Hello, Nick. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry about that. My phone died. I apparently didn't have it connected good enough to the charger. That's my bad. But we're all good now. It's all fixed. It's all, function has resumed. We're suffering and perishing. I'm sorry about that. Consider taking vitamins. Those help. Let me see here. You already know your pussy ass wouldn't be drafted. Some of us would be honored and proud. I mean, I wouldn't be drafted. You're right. Like, number one, I'm trans, and Trump apparently doesn't want any trans people in the military. Number two, I'm not exactly what you'd call cut out, right? Even if I did lose the weight, which I'm, gradually going about doing, I weigh 40 pounds right now, 40 pounds less than I did at the same time last year. So that's, a marginal bit of improvement. But even if I did all that, I still have a fucked up knee on my right side that has had cellulitis like 3 times, chew through different tendons and muscles down there. I walk with a limp at the best of times, right? Even if I'm not going through any pain, I kind of have a weird gait. Pretty sure I've probably got some other bone problems too, but I've never had like a full body scan to like exactly examine the proportions. But I'm pretty sure I can tell that there's some shit that's fucked up in there some way. Pretty sure I would not pass a MEPS physical, is what I'm saying. And the reason why I know is because I kind of thought about joining the Navy last year, right up until Trump got elected. And it's probably where a lot of that initial weight loss came from, was like I started walking more, and because that's basically all I can do around here. I live out in the country. It's not like I have a gym around me or anything like that. I can do stuff around the farm, but there's only so much stuff you can do in a day. But I would walk a lot, and I started drinking a lot more water, and kind of like the little, like, what would you call it? Like, there was like a shadowy voice in the back of my head that was like, even if you do all this stuff, there's a good chance your body is just naturally not going to make the cut. And I was like, you shut up. Because, I got fucking like bowed ass legs that go like, whoop, and fucking I don't think I have flat feet or anything like that, but I do have a fucked up and prone to injury body that would probably be rejected by any responsible military power. What do you think of biological women and men? Do you mean like cis men and cis women? I don't think any differently or worse of them than I think of anyone else. How long have you been on HRT? I have actually been off of HRT for a long time because I haven't been able to afford it. But eventually I do want to get re-enrolled in insurance that's not reliant on some kind of like external job. Like once I start earning enough from YouTube, I'd like to like buy insurance through the healthcare marketplace or something like that. Maybe even, I don't know, maybe I'd qualify for Medicaid. I don't think I would, but maybe. Who knows? I guess I'd have to fill out the application and see what happens. Probably get not approved because, you have to be like exceedingly poor to get Medicaid usually. But who the fuck knows? Maybe it'd be worth a try. I've paid into it with taxes long enough. I might as well get something out of it. Can trans people walk around without a shirt on? Like, could I still go topless if I was trans or after transition? Um, like, it depends, honestly. It depends on how well you, like, okay, if you're a trans woman, it depends on how well you can boy mode. And if you're a trans man, it depends on how big your tits are, honestly. Like, men can have tits. This is not me being sexist or transphobic or anything, right? But it really does depend on how big your tits are, really. And for trans men. And for trans women, it depends on, like, how well can you boy mode. Like, I couldn't do it because, like, you look at my hair and you know I'm a chick. I can't just go around topless, nor would I want to, honestly. I feel like I would get pretty uncomfortable from the stares that I would get, right? Not about that life, but somebody that had like a more androgynous haircut probably could get away with it with the right pair of like swimming trunks on or something like that. Excuse me. HRT is dirt cheap, 40-ish a month for me. Oh, what? That's cool. Can trans people walk? Oh, I already read that one. What's up, Capybara? Sees you. Yeah, totally chick. Yeah, I really totally am. I know that offends you, Divine Oryx, because you've got like a complex that tells you trans people are weird and gross and evil. But I'm really not offended by your misperceptions about me, and I really don't give a shit to convince you otherwise. I know that I'm a woman. Most of the chat knows. If you choose to ignore the fact, that's up to you, bud. That's your mistake to make. That's your wrongness to exist within. I'm a cis man and I still feel uncomfortable taking off my shirt, but that's just because I don't like my body. Well, yeah, I mean, like, there's plenty of people who don't like taking off their shirt, regardless of gender, honestly. Like, there are plenty of cis men and trans men, plenty of cis women and trans women that don't like just being, like, honestly, there are plenty of trans women and cis women that would not be comfortable in, like, a crop top sports bra kind of thing, Which is what this effectively is, right? I can pull it down a little more, make it more of a crop top, right? Like, depending on how I'm standing, it becomes more obvious as a crop top, but, I can also just have it, like, up like this, and it's more like sports bra, It's just simple biology. Yeah, biology is not simple, number one. And number two, gender and biology are completely different things. There's nothing in biology that says that men wear pants and like trucks and all this other stupid shit, right? That is not a biologically determined thing. That is something society chooses to foist on people who have a penis. Most people with penises don't mind it. Most people with penises don't mind all the weird shit that society foists upon them for being masculine. But some of them do. And a very small percentage of those that do are trans. Most of them are just like what you would call like an alternative kind of guy. But even then, a lot of their interests are considered masculine within those subcultures. So it's like, the performance of masculinity, the performance of femininity, these are things that human beings have put on people in response to what they perceive to be like some kind of internal makeup based on their external makeup. It's a deeply flawed system that deserves criticism. All holes are goals? Well, at least we agree there, Divine RX. Yeah, that's what hard men to do, be a submissive, obedient dog for the government. Do what now? What's going on? Do you think if you got really like fit and big muscles, would you feel feminine still? I would never seek out that kind of exercise. So I would never go for like muscle building exercises. Like I could lose most of this weight and then have the skin trimmed off. And honestly, as part of that, go through some feminization procedures and end up feeling way more feminine, honestly, if I lost some of this weight. But you know, I think there would be a limit to it for me because I don't think I would necessarily look right as like a super skinny person. Like that would just not be my idea of like that's not it. Like I haven't been skinny since I was a little kid, so it's hard for me to picture myself that way. I was probably like 12 or 13 the last time, probably like 11 or 12, honestly, the last time I would have called myself skinny. And even then, I was not athletic by any means. Like, I did plenty of shit, but I just was not, you know. Please draft me, government, please. If I'll die for you, let me be your obedient servant. Oh, Cappy. Get him, Cappy, get him. I've never known Cappies to be anything but chill, but I'm glad the one Cappy I know that fights against, you know, people in chat that are making bad arguments. I like to use the gym and sauna. I mean, you can continue to use the gym and sauna as like a person of, you know, like a trans person or whatever, right? I don't know if that's the point you're making. I'm just saying, like, if that's something holding you back, there are still ways to enjoy those things while being trans. It's not like you're excluded from those spaces. Are you scared to fully transition? You mean like sex reassignment surgery? It's out of like financial reach for me, for number one, and it probably always will be. There are plenty of insurance companies that don't even cover it as a covered procedure. So a lot of times you have to pay for it out of pocket. I'm probably never going to have that much money. If I do, then I would consider it more seriously. As of right now, I've kind of like tried to take the path of least resistance when it comes to that particular procedure, knowing that it's so unattainable for a person of my class level, and just like, you know, make peace with the fact that I have a dick, you know, to the best of my ability. God, this is such personal shit, you know, which, whatever, I'm very open about myself on here, but sometimes it still feels weird to talk about this particular topic because I feel like no cis person has ever asked to discuss this unless they're a porn star. You know, like no cis person has ever asked questions that ultimately pertain to their genitalia unless they're like a porn star. But for some reason, trans people are constantly asked questions like this. You know, I'm not going to lie and say it doesn't give me dysphoria, but I'm also like, what can I do about it right now other than try and make peace with it to the best of my ability, right? You know, so I don't have to like, but it's honestly kind of freeing to be that way because if you were raised, right, like I didn't come out as trans until I was like 21. So if you were raised as a dude and you were like socialized or whatever as a dude, then like you've got a lot of times like a bunch of weird complexes that surround the dick. And those kind of like dissipated for me after I came out as trans because it no longer mattered. It's like, whatever. Like I have an average sized dick. So like, who the fuck cares? Whatever. You know, it's no longer like the primary fucking, it's no longer like a primary aspect of my identity. And so it ended up actually being kind of freeing, like in a dysphoric kind of way, because it's part of like the male, like part of like the masculinity complex is worship of the penis and competition in regards to penis size and virility. And that sort of thing, when, like, if you're not a dude, you don't have to live under that precept. You don't have to worry about that competition. You're not participatory in it, and you can see it for what it is. So I actually ended up feeling less dysphoria about my penis after I came out as trans, interestingly enough. I guess I never really thought about it enough to put words to it, but this has actually been a pretty interesting conversation in that way. Here's a question, Phoebe. I'm pan, but men, specifically cis men, scare the shit out of me. Is it valid for me to say that I'm a lesbian? I think that would be for somebody that calls themselves a lesbian to decide. I am pan with a preference towards women, like trans women, cis women, doesn't matter to me, feminine people, gender fluid, people that trend towards the femme side. I don't really care. But that's the part of the spectrum that I'm, like, most attracted to. And cis men scare me a little too. So, I get the inclination. But I've always struggled with that myself, and so I've never called myself a lesbian. Well, not never, but it's been a long time since I've self-applied that term because it's a little controversial, There are definitely some people who will be, like, trans exclusionary when it comes to lesbianism and things like that. But I would say, like I said, I'm not the person to ask about it specifically. Like, don't take my take on it and run with it out there in the wild because you're probably going to get made fun of. I think it's probably fine for you to call yourself a lesbian if you, like, mostly like women, and if you occasionally want to fool around with a dude, because there are plenty of cis ladies. There are plenty of cis ladies that are lesbians that's them. They prefer women, but occasionally fool around with the dude because it's fun to have, like, that kind of sex every so often or whatever, So I think it's, like, a complicated topic that in a perfect world nobody would care, but in the world we live in right now, it's kind of a sensitive thing. Super fair. Well, thanks. Yeah, I try to make my takes as nuanced as possible, I try to stay abridged of what the opposition and the slight opposition and the less vague opposition is saying. Try to stay abridged of those arguments so I can circumvent them when possible. Because I think that's a big part, too. People don't talk about it, but that's a big part of convincing people that you have a better idea, is showing them how their idea could be improved by this, that, or the other thing. Being like, yeah, that's a good idea, but why don't we do this, that, and the other thing to make it even better, right? Suddenly people start thinking, oh, maybe this person's got some good ideas. They recognize my idea as a good one, and they even improved on it, Fun little rhetorical hack, if you have the ability to do it. Sometimes you're just not going to see eye to eye with somebody. Man, can you two get a room, please? Can you two fucking jaded lovers get a room and fuck it out and come back when you've satisfied your fucking raging, turgid boners for each other? Because you've been arguing in my chat now for like 10 minutes. And while I'm proud of my little Cappy warrior, I am growing fucking well sick of the conversation. If you took a T blocker, this toxicity and anger might be more manageable for you. Just a suggestion. Yeah, that's true. It might be. T blockers for cis men win, dude. Have you had children already? Have you done most of the things you want to do as a big burly man? Are you ready to stop dealing with constant rage and anxiety? Consider T blockers today. Lets you live longer and prevents you from... No, that was about to be a really dark joke. Never mind. Oh, fuck. Oh, well. Store that one in the old fucking memory box. Good Lord, they keep going. I've only been going for an hour and a half. This is like a side hustle for me. This is not just some fuck around joint. I can't always follow my schedule as well as I would like because I am, I'm a mother first and foremost, so I've got responsibilities outside of the stream. But I do try to stream every night, and this is my little side hustle, so I try to be serious about it. I try to give people a show worth watching and coming back to. I try to entertain people's love of conversation as long as mine holds out. So yeah, sometimes we're here for 2, 3, 4 hours. Not you? Oh, okay. I was about to say. Well, actually, I did say. How about the talking point of vasectomies for all AMAP people? They can get it reversed when they're 18 plus. That one I'm not a big fan of because it just rings of eugenics in my mind. I get the impression, but it also strikes me as one of those. It's the reason. Okay, hold on. Let me just respond to it. And my brain's going a million miles an hour, and so it's hard for me to land on a specific point to respond to. Okay, so let me just start here. I don't like policies that ring of eugenics in my mind, number one. And number two, this rings of like early 3rd/4th wave feminism, anti-SJW era, Tumblr feminism, kind of like, we're gonna fucking make men less capable of doing things badly and less capable of contributing to needless pregnancies by basically neutering them until they can get it reversed. And they have to go through a parenting class and all this shit. Like, I feel like I've heard takes like this before. And I'm not a big fan of them because I feel like, once again, it reminds me of eugenics. And I like solutions that offer people... I like weird fucking, feministy, fucking SJW-ass solutions to the world that involve people opting into shit or people being shown a better way or something like that through example. But I'm usually not a fan of these sorts of policies that would seek to like go between somebody and their right to live however they please and everything like that. Generally against things that I see as going against personal autonomy. And I've always seen these sort of like defertilization kind of policies as being like eugenics adjacent and overall kind of like, I don't know, they're frightening to me. I don't know how else to put it. It seems like something that could be very easily abused. It seems like something that at the very least would be abused on a class level, where rich people are paying giant bribes to doctors and shit to never have the policy done on their kids so that their kids can go off and fuck however many fucking people they want to, right? But maybe I'm fucking wrong. Maybe this would be something applied evenly. I just don't know that I would still... It just bothers me as a policy. Maybe I need to, have some conversations with someone who's really passionate about it to get to the root of why. But, like I said, it just rubs me the wrong way. What about forced abortions or tubes tied? What about forced abortions or tubes tied? Yeah, no, not a big fan of that either. I'm not a big fan of any of these mass sterilization policies. And like I said, maybe that's one of the things me and Paul should argue about. Because I do disagree with his eugenics policies, and some of them I can lay out a better argument for than others. This is one of those that I can't lay out a very good argument for why I fundamentally disagree with it, but I do. There's something about the take that rubs me the wrong way. There's something about the idea of forced sterilization that rubs me the wrong way, and I haven't been able to put my finger on exactly what, outside of just the basic personal autonomy, people should be able to fucking have kids if they want to kind of thing. And that I would back up with the whole, it's not the amount of resources, it's the way they're proportioned kind of argument. But ultimately, it feels like there's more to it than that, and I just haven't talked to someone who's passionate about it enough to really understand what my broader issues with it are. Boop. Thank you, Frey. I appreciate the $4.99. Frey, I don't know if you're hanging around, but we're talking about forced sterilization, and I was just saying how I know basically why I'm against it, because I think that people do or at least should have the right to fucking have kids if they want to. And I think that it's not, people say that, oh, well, overpopulation. And I'm like, well, is it overpopulation or is it people being stacked on top of one another? When if we would redistribute ourselves in a way that makes sense, everybody would have more than enough room. We could continue producing plenty of food. And if we weren't supporting this giant fucking billionaire class and a giant amount of luxury in a bunch of countries that are mostly in the like North America, Western Europe, these kind of countries, right? If we weren't supporting all of that shit, and I know that some of these countries have taken to way more efficient uses of their money and everything else, right? Like, I understand that. But if we weren't dealing with the inefficiencies of the grocery store, the inefficiencies of, like, modern restaurants and the way that they're ran and the utter amount of food waste that just goes to landfills and shit like that. Under our current system, yeah, I think overpopulation is a problem, but I think it's only a problem because of the way we've decided to set up our lives. But long story short, I don't really know why else why else the solution bothers me, other than that I take a basic issue with the overpopulation is in and of itself a problem as far as humanity goes. Like, I think that we're nearing the Earth's carrying capacity, but not to the point where I think we need to introduce sterilization policies. I think that, we need to modernize in places that haven't modernized yet. And I think that we need to, like, vastly improve countries that are experiencing these, like, giant population booms as far as a bunch of people having fucking kids for effectively no reason other than their culture tells them to, right? Cultures tend to do that less as they modernize and as things become more accessible there and as education becomes regular, But I don't really know what else bothers me about the argument. So I don't know. Maybe if you've got some good reasons you've illustrated for it in the past or something, it'd be interesting to get your take on it. Do you think there should be a limit on abortion? Like, they have to pay for it after the third time they have to get their tubes tied? Of course, that's not including medical reasons for SA. I think, honestly, I think you should be able to get your tubes tied anytime you want to. That's something I was going to bring up. Thank you for actually asking me that question because it reminded me of this, right? I think that you should be able to get your tubes tied without any fucking rigmarole if you're an AFAB person. I think that it should be easy as fuck. I don't think you should have to get permission from anybody. I don't think anybody else's opinion should be fucking considered. I don't think that you should have to have 2 or 3 children before you do it. I think you should just be able to get it done whenever you want to. And I think a hysterectomy as part of gender-affirming care should be standard for AFAB people if they want to go through with that. I think it should be like an option presented just on the default, not something that should be like defended almost religiously, I think a lot of people would choose that, and in that case, we would, it would honestly, make incredibly less necessary a bunch of abortions. Like, you would end a lot of the possibility for a lot of abortions just by allowing cis women and trans men who want to get their tubes tied or their uterus removed to do so when they want to. What do you think of bi people in straight relationships? Should they go to pride conventions? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Go to pride if you're an ally. Go to pride if you're in a bisexual relationship. Go to pride if you're in a straight relationship, but you're both queer. Go to fucking pride. I don't care who you are, what you are, or when you are. Just go to pride. Go to pride. Bring a sign. Bring a flag. Buy something from a queer vendor. Have a gay old time. And come home and tell the story. I don't care who you are. George Carlin had a good idea with the golf courts. Give them to the homeless, but more land is unoccupied than occupied. It's crazy. Oh, I know. That's why I say that overpopulation is not a problem. It's the apportion of resources. It's the fact that there is a giant class of people who are just allowed to take up massive swaths of land for nothing other than putting a little fucking white ball through the air. Swinging at a little white ball with a club, trying to get it into a tiny little hole somewhere on the other side of a hill. That is an outrageous and obnoxious and a disgusting use of land in the face of a profound homeless epidemic. A homelessness epidemic that's worse than it was in Carlin's time. Let's think about that. We've got more homeless people now than Carlin and his time was dealing with. Think about that. But yeah, if these countries with giant populations that are just like boomed and like they've just boomed and exploded and everything, if countries like America would ease up their immigration policies and other countries with plenty of land, but like honestly, it might require regime change in some of these places. I don't know. Like China, I know is like overpopulated in some areas. I think China is kind of dealing with that by building artificial cities, like just building planned fucking communities out in the countryside and adjacent to these larger city centers and shit and trying to spread their people out more. So they're trying to deal with it, right, within their own country. But I think that places like Russia and China eventually, they're just going to have to open up or the world's going to become like infinitesimally worse. Because this sort of like as long as overpopulation is kept a problem, because I think it is an artificial problem, right? It's a problem because like continue the endless capitalist exploitation of the world. Overpopulation is a problem right now if we don't want to change anything about the way we do things as a planet. But if we change the way we do things as a planet, you know, crazy things could happen. People could be redistributed. People could immigrate en masse, ease the demands on some of these places who could start to institute some real reforms. They could start to fucking manage their country better. They could start to rebuild critical infrastructure and install new and better infrastructure. They could start to provide better and healthier water supplies for its citizens. They could start to actually fucking mount an actual cleanup effort to some of the places. And I'm honestly, I'm thinking about India with a lot of this shit. You know, they could clean up the Ganges, but they can't clean up the Ganges as long as there's like a billion people living in India that are constantly trashing up the Ganges because there's nowhere else to throw the fucking garbage because services have broken down to the extent that it, like these sorts of problems exist because like the capitalist overlords that run this fucking world want these problems to exist. They profit off of the way things are, not the way things might be if a bunch of globalist reforms were enacted. More than cis men get circumcisions? Oh yeah, 100%. I'm not building my language to accommodate a small percentage. What do you mean? I just want to say I'm happy to be here. I've never been able to ask questions without the other person about trans or abortion being extremely offended by me just asking for a point of view. Stupid but true. I mean, yeah, it is kind of a... I think that it happens on both sides. I think that it's kind of a tendency in American politics now to react to genuine questions about someone's worldview with vitriol and hate. And I think that it's important that we all learn how to not do that. I think it's important that we all learn how to actually consider what someone asks us and give a genuine answer. Because I think that kind of thing builds relationships. That sort of thing builds rapport. That sort of thing might convince someone that you really are the person you say you are if you're a trans person. Or that you're not a scary predator if you're a black person. Or that you're not, well, a scary predator if you're a Mexican person. That you're not some frightening terrorist if you're a Middle Eastern person, right? And I know that this sort of thing is hard to bear the brunt of, right? I can know that it's not an easy thing to go out there and answer a bunch of personal or impertinent questions from people who don't understand, but it's something that's critical to improving people's understanding of the lives of others around them. And that's the only thing that builds empathy for other people in human beings' minds. Knowing the actual situation of another human being is the only way to meaningfully engage with them. I'm going to see what the dog is barking at, because they've been barking for like 20 minutes now. You go on. I didn't hear nothing, so I'm assuming that they're just barking at nothing. Ow. Oh, God, my leg hurts. And they're back to it already. What are we arguing about at this point? Can I get an update in chat as to what's going on? So yeah, I mean, Cappy, I tend to agree with you, honestly. I tend to agree with you that it's wrong to expect men to go through some procedure that women aren't going to go through. But I'm not a fan of any mass or forced sterilization procedure, because I think it's all based on the false premise that overpopulation is currently a problem. And I think that it's like a false problem that has been exacerbated by our choosing to do things this way as a set of world powers. I think that if America chose to accept way more immigrants, if America made it easier to immigrate here, made it easier to build things here, made it easier to make this a more appealing country to immigrate to, I think that we could ease a lot of the fucking burden on places that are right now experiencing like what you can only term overpopulation, that is, I think, mainly a problem because like these people have, in a lot of cases, a culture that encourages them to be fruitful and multiply. Maybe not in that like language necessarily, but that combined with the fact that in a lot of cases people are reliant on the idea of having someone like kids to take care of them when they're older, makes people feel like really dependent on this idea of having kids so that they've got a family that can help take care of them, and maybe the family that they fucking create as they have kids will do better than they did and have better chances that they did, and in a way it's a noble thing, but in a way it's like an insurance policy against getting old, and that's kind of a, I think, dark, fucked up reason to have a kid. I think that society should provide that. But society can't provide that as long as you're starting from a standpoint of like, we've got way too fucking many people in this motherfucking country. Which is the situation that India is in. And it's just one example of a country, but it's probably the worst example, right? As far as just a place that's got way too fucking many people. Like, you could fit India in the United States, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I'm mistaken about that, but I'm pretty sure if you combine Alaska, Hawaii, and the rest of the United States, you could fit India in it probably twice, maybe. So, like, imagine 2 billion people living in America. That's insane. That's a giant, enormous amount of people. I think America has a bad problem with social media being very dividing on purpose, to get two strong sides of a topic to fight, and they rule that with purpose using social media thoughts. I actually agree with you on this one, Lexi. Yeah, I think the social media environment is meant to make people more angry at each other. I mean, honestly, I take advantage of that to some degree. Now, what you found, Lexi, is that if you ask me genuine questions, even if they're not worded exactly the right way or whatever, I will answer them, You found, like many people that disagree with me, that take the chance to actually get to know me and ask me questions genuinely from an open mind, you found what most of them find, which is that I'm a really open-minded person that loves to talk about why I feel the way I do and why I think the way I think, right? And but I still take advantage of that because I make kind of a rage baity title. I'm kind of like a rage baity looking person to some people's eyes, right? I don't think I am, but I've definitely gotten, like people are usually one way or the other about how I look, right? I'm a creature of far extremes in that regard. So, I take advantage of it, but ultimately I choose to go a different way with it, right? I pull people in with the idea that it's going to be that, but then I keep people pulled in by showing that it's not that. And yeah, I think America, but not just America, I think a lot of fucking countries that have a high presence of social media are contaminated by this problem. Because a lot of fucking countries, like every country that is a capitalist country, which is to say all countries, stand to benefit from this kind of thing. They stand to benefit from us arguing with each other about meaningless nonsense rather than arguing with each other about what a better world would look like if we were actually going to pursue it and how we might actually pursue that. They want us talking about whether or not trans women should be allowed in sports, not whether or not billionaires should be allowed to pay nothing in taxes every year. They want us arguing about whether or not I should have the right to get HRT funded by Medicaid, not whether or not we should have universal health care or not. They want us arguing about whether or not Mexican people are invading the country and stealing all of our jobs, rather than us talking about why wages have been stagnant in America for the last 50 years, and why benefits have been getting worse and worse and worse, and why less and less has been offered by more and more companies, by why more and more jobs are worth less. They want us arguing about stupid bullshit. They want us arguing about stupid bullshit rather than uniting for things that would actually get us meaningful progress in this country. They want us arguing about like the semantics of illegal immigration and shit rather than just saying it's fucking wrong to deport people en masse that we depend on, and it's wrong to underpay them. Fuck that. It prevents accidental underage pregnancy, but if you want to mention useless medical procedures, circumcision. Social media does do this for engagement 100%. Oh yeah, 100%. Also, you keep bringing up circumcision. That's not what we're talking about, so like stop. Okay, I'm putting up. Okay, so what is the argument here? Okay, it prevents unneeded teenage pregnancies, but so does proper sex education, though. So does proper sex education and eliminating poverty, or reducing it massively. Good, proper, thorough sex education in combination with good policies and things that reduce poverty and reduce the effects of poverty and cushion people from that. Those sorts of things prevent pregnancy, teenage pregnancy, just as well. I mean, maybe not just as well, but you're talking about like massively, massively crushing the problem versus, you know, America's comparatively high teen birth rate. If you compare it to some other countries, I mean. Yeah, I genuinely like you. I don't dislike you. I don't think you're going to hell or whatever. I'm grateful I've been able to view things from a different perspective. Well, I appreciate it, Lexi, and I hope you stick around because I appreciate that kind of thing immensely, and that's what I'm trying to do ultimately, too. Yeah, there are things I would like to convince people of, but there's also a lot of things that I just want to be understood more a little bit myself, and that I want to understand more myself. And it's helpful for me to have conversations with people that disagree with me or people that see things from a different perspective, because it helps me understand the place that they're coming from and people like them are coming from, but it also helps me to refine my own arguments and to respond to them better, right? So it's all around a good thing. Sometimes I feel unheard. I'm sorry, Thomas Jefferson. That's not a flaw in my argument if I never brought that up or said I supported it. Wait, what? Way better option than sterilizing boys, which might not always be reversible after 18. Well, mostly not always. Is sex ed and birth control 100% always reversible things? Well, I'm saying that, yeah, like proper sex ed, proper access to birth control, things like that make teenage pregnancy way less of a thing. And honestly, a country that's put together well can deal with the bad outcomes of a teenage pregnancy occasionally a lot better. You know, like there's better medical care, people are more accessible of it, like people are better able to access it, right? It makes it easier for people to get the most top-notch care, to not be put to the side or anything like that. I don't know, it just seems like there's a way that we could do this that would improve a lot of people's lives and that wouldn't involve sterilizing anybody, which could, you know, I get it, usually reversible, but Capybara is right, sometimes it's not. It's usually reversible, you know. But every so often there's going to be somebody that wants to have kids that can't because they got caught up in the eugenics policy. And I get that it's not a eugenics policy from your standpoint, but that's how it comes off to me, you know. And I can't help but see it as that. But once again, I haven't really argued with enough people to know exactly how I stand on it. My friends call me TJ. Okay, cool. Interesting. Now we have two TJs. Well, luckily, I call the other TJ Frey, because they have many names, and Frey is my favorite. Yes, I don't agree with the position of forced vasectomies. I did attempt to say this. I think it's a blatant violation of someone's consent because it is an unnecessary medical procedure. Oh, okay. Then we agree then. It's a useful topic to bring up because it ties into the abortion and circumcision topic. It does, for sure. Yeah, I don't think that circumcision should be required, and nowadays it's not in most hospitals, as far as I know, in America. And that's good. I think people should have the right to determine what happens with their body parts, and circumcision is not some necessary medical procedure. Maybe there's a very fucking seldom occasion when it's supposed to be done, but I've not heard about it. As far as I know, it's something that's mostly unnecessary, done for some like weird convenience or aesthetic reason. I ain't about it. And yeah, in general, I think forcing someone's hand on any medical procedure is wrong. But forced sterilization procedures and like DNA editing kind of procedures, things like that, I'm against all of these because I think that they all attempt to fix problems that, like, I think a lot of them stem ultimately from capitalism, misappropriation of resources, or lack of support. Or they are problems because of some kind of lack of support, and I think that they would be less problems if we made society better in a number of ways. The better we make society, the less any of these fucking like weird social ills that people complain about, the less any of them have an impact, and the less, honestly, that any of them occur. And that's just been shown in countries that are like that. Why is it that the happiest countries have the lowest rates of addiction? Why is it that the happiest countries have the lowest rates of teen pregnancy? Why is it that the happiest countries have universal health care? Why is it that the happiest countries have guaranteed paid maternity leave and shit like this? Why is it that the happiest countries all have weirdly kind of socialist policies? I think that there's a common thread between all of these things, and it says basically to me, you make society better for everybody, the less people fall through the cracks. Well, it might sound surprising, but the less people fall through the cracks, You fix the cracks, the less people fall through them. It's complicated physics, I know. I do think sex ed is also better than birth control because, birth control promotes, an addiction to that kind of, I don't know about that. I know not intended purposes, but a lot of women use it for that. No, I don't think that's true. For your mental health, because you shouldn't. Dude, what? I've never heard of women using birth control for mental health purposes. Is there even a birth control that would work like that? I guess, not having to deal with a period would. That's kind of got, a mental health benefit, I guess. It's a fringe benefit, though. It's okay, I'm thankful my hubby is willing to adopt if we ever want to. Yeah, I mean, there would be options for people, I understand, but still. Yeah. I meant, sex addiction. Didn't want to say that because I feel gross. Oh, well, you shouldn't feel gross. You're not 12. It's fine. It's a topic, something that happens to human beings, something we should be honest about. Sex addiction. Oh, yeah! Sex ed is important and needs to be a mandatory topic in all schools. Vasectomies are dope when the person getting it consents as an adult. Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think sex ed is always an ideal solution to the, people are fucking too much and having too many teen pregnancies problem. I think sex ed, did I just say sex addiction? Holy shit. Anyway, but I think sex ed is always a good, that's always a better option. It's a good way to tackle it. And accessible birth control. That's the other thing. You need to have it so that young people especially can get free birth control at school or wherever. They need to be able to get it. There needs to be some kind of fucking office that is easy to access, needs to be available from any doctor's office. It needs to be a thing. There needs to be fucking money set aside in the tax budget to pay for basic event-to-event birth control. Things like condoms, female condoms. Sex addicts usually have a past trauma of SA from childhood. Yeah, sadly true. It is one of those things that seems to have a high rate of coincidence. It's just one of the many negative outgrowths from having a society that has kind of allowed some fucked up shit to go on in its culture. Because, man, if the Epstein shit has revealed anything, it's that America is maggoty with this shit. This shit that we're all always on social media decrying. But somehow, every time a star comes out, like every time it's fucking revealed, right, that a star probably diddled some people or something, there's always a crowd of people to defend them. And in some cases, I even agree with them, right? There's some cases where I don't think the evidence really stacks up all that well. But there's a lot of cases where I think the evidence is pretty fucking obvious, and yet there's always a crowd of people out there to defend it. And now we're finding out that it might be half of all American politicians. Who the fuck knows? We'll never probably know at all. Unless, like I said, in the next couple of months, a hacker group fucking ends up just leaking it to everybody. And in that case, it's going to be a giant political and social and cultural upset, because there's going to be all kinds of movie stars and politicians on both sides, and famous people and rich people and financiers and things like this, billionaires. There's all going to be all kinds of fucking people, rich, well-connected people implicated in this shit. And there's going to be all kinds of people that go away because of it. Here's a list of conditions where circumcision is needed. Phimosis, paraphimosis, recurrent balantis, recurrent balantis, Zerotica obliterans. I'm not a fucking doctor. I can't read this shit. I'm too dumb. I'm too much of a hick. I'm sorry. Way too much of a hick to pronounce those names correctly on the first try. I feel like the fucking dog of wisdom. The bit has transpired again. Let's just see. Phimosis, paraphimosis. Okay, I think I got that one right. Recurrent balanitis. Okay. Recurrent balanitis. Recurrent balanitis. Balanitis erotica obliterans. Recurrent urinary tract infections. Okay, cool. So there's a few conditions that might necessitate abortion, that might necessitate circumcision. That's fine. Nobody's saying, like, if it's necessary for the health of the person or the child in question, don't do it. What people are saying is that we need to stop doing it for every little boy that comes across that comes out of a pussy. That's probably a stupid idea. Doing it for every single little AMAB kid that comes out of a pussy seems like a pretty stupid idea. Seems like we could wait to see if any of those issues turn out before we engage in the surgery. Yeah, if people need it or the person getting wants to go wild, right. It's crazy how much SA happened in high up places socially and is known but ignored. Not trying to bring up past, but did he? Like what? Like, and according to, jury of his peers or whatever, Diddy didn't do it. Well, Diddy did it, but Diddy did something way less bad than people thought he did. So effectively, Diddy didn't do it, and Diddy's out now. Diddy done got out. Diddy done diddled on home. Diddy done dawdled on home. What's up, Post Music? But yeah, just another example of why corruption is bad. We need to revolt and form an anarchist state. What? Half joking? Yeah, well, I can't advocate for that. That was a joke, YouTube. I don't want that. I do want some kind of post-futurist eco-utopia sometime at some point, but I don't think we're getting that tomorrow, the next day, or any time in my lifetime. What I advocate for is a market socialist system where the needs of the people are like taken care of by collective effort of the people and of the corporations that currently rule over the people. I think the power of those corporations needs to be continuously dialed down until workers have control of the means of production. But until that time, we need to take human needs out of the hands of the marketplace. I don't think it does responsible things with them. And we need to leave the marketplace for things like luxuries, things that people don't need in order to live. PlayStation 5, sure. You got to work for that, or you got to save up your monthly allotment in whatever, like, baseline bare necessities are met kind of UBI based society. But, you know, internet access, I think that should be like a given. You know, the ability to get online with some kind of device or something like that, I think that is an important part of, like, staying abreast of the news, staying connected to loved ones, finding a job, that sort of thing. You need the internet to live nowadays, so I support that being taken care of through collective effort, through taxes. Same thing with water, like electricity, housing, and transportation, I think, should be effectively taxpayer funded as well, but I think it should be massively expanded. I think there's maybe a few places that could, you know, do with a mixed taxpayer funded slash publicly or customer funded kind of system. Like big cities, I think, would especially benefit for something like this, where if you live in the city, a portion of your taxes goes to pay for your ability to ride the subway or the light rail system or whatever it is for free anytime you want to. And if you're visiting the city, well, you have to, you know, buy a card and reload it every so often. Ozzy and Hulk Hogan, I know. Big legends dying. Hulk Hogan was kind of a piece of shit, though, honestly. That dude was kind of a motherfucker. I never listened to Ozzy. I'm on the rock side, but not that side. I heard he was sweet, though, and changed his will before his death to where his wife, like, got a bunch of flowers each week or something. That's sweet. Yeah, I hope Sharon Osbourne is okay after all this. It is sad. But yeah, I mean, Ozzy was a great guy, well loved by everybody, you know? Sharon, that woman is not well. What? Hogan had too many hoagies? Maybe he did. Gonna insult the dead now. Hogan was all right, all American. Yeah, he was also a union buster and, like, made the Undertaker think he broke his fucking neck for like 20 years or some shit before it came out that it was all bullshit. You know, like, I'm not trying to insult the man, but let's be honest about his legacy. Mixed record. Whereas Ozzy was pretty much known his whole life as, like, a pretty nice dude, uh, good to the people he worked with, good to work with. Yeah, and the dead can't hear it. That's actually a really good point. I'm too much of a crazy hippie spiritualist to think of it that way, but you're right. Didn't Ozzy and Sharon have a Romeo and Juliet pact? Oh, did they? Oh man, that's I mean, that might be a rumor or something like that. I don't know. Unless that happened on the Osbournes or something, probably not canon. You know, like, I don't know. There's, like, Ozzy is one of those dudes that's been around for so long, right? And been so influential for so long that there's all kinds of weird urban legends floating around about him. There's all kinds of stories composed of half-truths and retellings of Ozzy Osbourne. So who the fuck knows? I mean, I think that's kind of the beauty of the legend of the man, right? We gotta pray for Sharon to not do it for a couple weeks now, but people, yeah, dude, I don't know. Like I said, I'm sure some people do. I've never met a person who actually does, but I'm sure some people do. No one says shit when you speak ill of living people. Yeah, I know. Well, that's the great hypocrisy of death, right? Once you're dead, dude, suddenly you're an all right guy. When Bernie dies, just wait. There's going to be a bunch of right wingers who come out and were like, they're going to come out and be like, you know, Bernie was one of the only legit dudes I thought I saw on the Democratic Party ever. And, it's a real shame Bernie is dead because that's one of the last few Democrats that gave a shit about anybody. I can hear it already. Death makes martyrs and saints of us all. Unless you die after doing a bunch of really crazy horse shit, but you got to do a lot of crazy bullshit to be remembered not as a hero. If you're a public figure, after you die, man, people want to whitewash your legacy like a fucking statue. People want to fucking, like, I don't know, dude. The narrative around a human being changes remarkably in the wake of their death. Not always, not universally, but it tends to. I thought people just said that to be like heartwarming and romantic. Do what? Trans girls, I don't like the male figure. I'm not that gay. Do what? I might be bisexual, but I don't label myself anyway. I mean, I choose I choose bi as a label because it's what I grew up with, but pansexual is probably what's more accurate, and I don't think any of it matters all that much. A little bit gay is already gay. I mean, yeah. T.S. Madison asks if you think self-identifying gay men would date a trans woman. No, I don't think a self-identifying gay man would date a trans woman because he would see her as too feminine. Like, he would probably see her as a woman, or at the very least, as a man who was way too feminine for him to be into. Either a gay man is going to be anti-trans and not think trans women are valid women and therefore be put off by trans people, or a gay man is going to view a trans woman as a woman and therefore not within his area of interest. I mean, I guess they still could if they wanted to. Like, there's nothing... It's not like their gay card is going to get revoked because they date a trans lady, Yeah, they are, but most trans women, have different energy than cis women. I mean... I think everybody has different energy from everybody. There's some tendencies, but because for a lot of their life they were socialized as a man even though they weren't, I think that has varying degrees of effect. The answer to the question is no, obviously, because trans women are women. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? Basically. In not so few words. Black women might have a different energy as a Latina gal. Well, yeah. I'm half Cuban, half Russian, never had a Latina or black GF. Interesting. I'm 99.4%, I think. I'm 99.4% white, and then I'm 0.4% Angolan and Congolese, and 0.2% Northern Indian and Pakistani. I might have those two mixed up, but one of them's one of them and the other's the other. Excuse me. And I've dated, I dated a girl who was heavily Native American. I don't know exactly to what degree, but you could just look at her and tell. You look at her dad and tell too. Even her mom, I think, was probably mixed race in that way. But let's see here. Everybody else I've dated has been white. Some variety of white, yeah. I did have sex with a black girl once, but like that doesn't count as dating. We were like friends with benefits. No, we had sex more than once, actually. That's personal. You post songs? I never figured that out from your username. I'm dumb. Yeah, nice post. Well, good job. Was her uncle a skinwalker? No. No, that might have been interesting, but no. I think I'm gonna have to go soon, y'all. I can't believe we bottomed out at 14 viewers. That sucks. It is indeed late. Yeah, for me, it's like almost 3 in the morning. Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah. I think I'm going to call it quits, y'all. Sativa or indica? The real question. Um, hmm. It depends on the context, honestly, Lexi. If it's the end of the day and it's nighttime and I'm just trying to like chill out and watch a movie or even just chill out and play music or something like that, I'm going to want an indica dominant hybrid. Either a hybrid, an indica dominant hybrid, or an indica. Because I like to chill out and kind of veg out when I'm doing some kind of like collective potheady activity like watching a movie and jabbing about it or playing guitar and jamming out, you know. If I'm having like a morning smoke and I want to be out and ready for the day and more sociable and things like that, and I want to like conquer the day, that kind of thing, definitely more of a sativa girl in that specific in that specific circumstance, because in that specific circumstance you need that kind of like boost of energy that comes from the sativa if you're going to be smoking weed anyway, and if you have the ability to select strain. How checked out will you be if 2028 is Trump versus Newsom? How checked out will I be? I won't be checked out at all because I'm like a political obsessive, if you guys can't tell. You know, I don't make it my whole life. Obviously, you guys have heard me talk about other things probably, but like I do keep up with it, and I am fascinated by Trump's political career because I kind of feel like I'm living through history. You know, if George Bush counted as history for the American people, I don't see how Trump doesn't, because he's engaging in a way more public campaign of mass deportation than a lot of presidents have done. You know, he is way more vocal about the shit he wants to do and way more conniving and Machiavellian about it than a lot of presidents before him, maybe with the exception of Bush. You know, he's taking a lot of the things that Bush did and escalating them. And it seems to me like he's going to help us participate in regime change in Iran. I just have that feeling in my bones. I've had it for about a month and a half now, and I think something's going to happen on that front, but I don't know when. And so as a result, I'm very interested in seeing what happens, honestly. I'm interested in seeing how it goes and whether or not Trump will, because I think like Trump's not going to run for a third term if the Constitution has not been changed to allow that beforehand. I don't think so. I don't think he'll try to challenge that directly. Like, I think he'll try to challenge it in court or through the legislative process or something before actually running for a third term. Now, I may be wrong about that, but I just feel like he'll run up against a constitutional crisis if he does otherwise. And it's probably going to lead to some kind of January 6th happening again. And it's going to be a lot of fucking bullshit. And, you know, Trump is kind of an unpredictable fuck, so I think it just depends on his mental state as the time draws nearer to that. But I do think he's going to attempt to challenge it constitutionally before he runs some kind of third third term campaign. And if he does manage to challenge it constitutionally and get it to where he can get approved to run for a third term, then I'm going to be really invested in the fucking Trump versus Newsom kind of thing, if that's what ends up happening. I don't know that Newsom will end up being the, the front runner of the Democratic Party at that time. It seems like the Dems have really been trying to get fucking, like, just the most straight-laced, juiced-in motherfuckers ever into the position. I don't know that Gavin Newsom necessarily fits that profile, but maybe he does. Maybe he does. I think there's a good chance that it's AOC, though, because AOC has showed a fucking complete and utter fucking devotion to the DNC. I was hopeful for AOC, but her standing on the Iron Dome I don't like. Well, that's the thing. That's when I knew that AOC was bought and paid for. That's when I knew that AOC cares more about continuing to be a Democratic operative than she does about being a voice for the people, or a voice for the Palestinian people, for that matter. AOC cares more about preserving her position than she does about, like, being a good politician for the people who voted her in, and for the people who wanted her candidacy and her fucking campaign to do well. Now all that's up in smoke, and people continue to vote for her now under the lesser of two evils argument. The same exact fucking reason they used to vote for the other old crusty Democrat that used to occupy that position. It's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. It's just a constant fucking ping pong ball game where every so often we think we've gotten something better, only to have a piece of shit turd returned back to us, and we have to serve it back, because what else can we do? What else can we do? And we all get trapped in that endless fucking cycle of failure. That endless, repeating, entrapped cycle of failure. Hakeem Jeffries is not... He's just as juiced into the DNC as anybody. I would not vote for Hakeem Jeffries. I think it's Hakeem, actually. I would not vote for Hakeem. I would vote... Let me think here. Is there a single person? I will say this much. There's not a single person that could run on the DNC ticket, I don't think. Not unless they let a socialist run. And if I was going to say, like a socialist, who would that be? Like a modern socialist. I don't think... Trying to think if there's anybody out there I would consider an anti-capitalist enough. Richard Ojeda, maybe. Yeah, I would probably vote for Ojeda, honestly, yeah. I'd vote for an Ojeda. Let me think here. Well, I'd vote for a Mamdani, but, Mamdani is, like, embattled in New York City right now, and he's, like, not an American. Well, he's an American citizen, but he wasn't, like, born in America. So he's not eligible for the presidency. Also, like, TBH, I don't know if I'd want a woman as president. Once a month we would set bombs on a country, I'd be scared. I don't think that's true, Lexi. I have met a lot of women who are way more reasonable during their periods than some men are after losing a fucking game of football, or after thinking that their team lost a fucking game of football or something on the TV. I mean, have you seen the type of shit that mostly male soccer fans will get up to after the loss of a game in Europe, or even after a victory in Europe and all kinds of fucking places all over the world? It makes people fucking riot because they won. So you're telling me women are going to be more unstable on some random weekend and a couple of days after every month? So we got to exclude them from the highest office in the land, but we're not going to exclude Trump's narcissistic ass, who basically sent U.S. bombs to Iran because Israel fucking asked him to, Because him and Netanyahu are good buddies and he's bloodlusty as fuck? That doesn't seem very stable to me. In fact, that seems like a far, like, more present danger than an occasional period. Like, I think it would be actually pretty nice if the president was only trying to fuck up the whole world once a month. Because right now, the president we got, the framework we got right now, the people we got right now, they're fucking up the world every day. They're trying to, at the very least. I don't know if they're always successful, but they're trying, right? I don't buy the women bad for office because periods when Trump and Elon had a week-long catfight. That's my fucking thing, dude. Not only, they haven't had a week-long catfight, they've had a fucking catfight for the last 2 or 3 months. Since his position ended at Doge, since like a couple of days before that, they have been in fucking war. They have been at war. Elon is fucking constantly talking shit about Trump and constantly talking shit about the administration and all this other shit. And Trump is, you know, anytime he wants to, just fucking feuding back. They had like a week-long catfight where it was real fierce, but, you know, it's gone to a cold conflict where occasionally one of them fires off some naval guns at the other. Every so often one pierces the deck and it's got to be repaired. I'm back? Well, thanks. Or good. I mean, yeah, I'm reading the chat. How about we get a Latino president to clash with this time? I would be in support of that, genuinely. I don't know who would be a good candidate for that. Maybe, you know who might be a good candidate for that? I don't know how her policies have been going, but Governor Lujan from New Mexico, I forget what her last name is. I forget what her her full name is, but I remember Lujan as part of the name, and I think it's a really pretty part of her name. I think it's Claudia, maybe? I don't know. I know Claudia Steinbaum is the president of Mexico right now, but anyway, the governor of New Mexico might be a good. Like, honestly, I need to look into her. I wonder, because maybe she could be like a little bit of an unknown candidate to come up on the 2028 elections. I don't know, because like she's been generally popular in the state, I think, and that's usually a good sign for me. I like politicians that are well liked in their home districts, and I drove on quite a few roads in New Mexico that had a little sign saying that, you know, this was signed into law. This improvement project was signed into law by Governor Lujan, this night, date and time, and whatever. Oh, she's all right. Oh, man, that's not a very good review. Kenneth King, Democrat from Washington State, is very good. I'd follow him. He almost won the Republican county and just might. And next time we could throw him under the bus by making him president. What? Gotta love the Kansas Governor Kelly, trying her hardest, but immediately vetoed by the hyper-conservative House. Yeah. That's the bad thing about being like a more liberal fucking Democratic governor in a state that's kind of like dominated by conservatives in general and like rural counties and things like that. You have to do a tremendous amount of outreach to get any kind of fucking move on them. And ultimately, you have to spend your first term just convincing a bunch of Republicans to vote the other way in the next election. And then you have to get, like, once you've gotten enough seats back under your party's fucking control, then you can start to enact some legislation. Then you can start to do some of your agenda. But it's a fucking tricky fucking thing, because you also have to try and get some stuff done in your first term so that you prove that you're worthy of being elected to a second term. And it's just like, it's a very fucking close tightrope that you have to walk as a state governor. Not that I would know anything about it. I'm not a fucking state politician, but I've lived in battleground states where this is kind of the situation, and this seems to be how it works. I grew up in New Mexico. No. I grew up in Missouri and Mississippi, but I used to live in New Mexico. I used to live in a van, actually. Lived all over the country, and New Mexico was one of my old haunts. I used to stay in Ruidoso about 2-3 months out of the year. It'd be like my home base, and I'd go all over the state, you know, checking out different things, and staying around like the borders of the state and seeing things in Texas and Colorado and Utah and Arizona. But no, I didn't grow up there. I'm sorry. I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's cool. Remind me, what is the full name of the governor you guys got, or that they got right now? Because I've been trying to remember it and I can't remember. Whitmer, yeah, Gretchen Whitmer. Yeah, I've heard of her too. I don't know anything about her though, so I'm hesitant to advocate for or against her. New Mexico is great. I love ABQ. I've got my problems with ABQ. I'll be honest. ABQ is the only fucking city I was ever fucking threatened at a motel in. Literally. I traveled all over the fucking country when I was living in my van, and every so often, usually about once every 2 weeks or so, we'd make enough money, guitar and singing, sometimes more often than that, but at least once every 2 weeks, we'd make enough money, guitar and singing, that we'd be able to buy a motel. At least, not, we couldn't do it in the fucking second year I was traveling, but in the first year I was traveling, second year, not so good, first year, pretty fucking good. Second year was third year was like, oh God, I can't do this anymore. And I got off the road in 2023. But anyway, Michelle Lujan Grisham. Okay, cool. Nice. Most beautiful state you traveled to? I bet you can guess. I'll tell you this much. I've been as far east as Salisbury Beach, Massachusetts, and as far west as Pismo Beach, California. As far north as the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and as far south as Pensacola, Florida. So, in that wide-ranging space, what do you think is the most beautiful state I've ever visited? If you had to guess. Colorado? Close. No, I gotta be honest with you. It's New Mexico. My heart lives in that state and always will. If I could afford to move there, I would want to move somewhere I could farm, so I would have to move to one of the fucking places that are most expensive to live in New Mexico, which is kind of like the Highlands area around Taos and Cimarron and some places like that where you get more regular rain and there's more access to streams and things like that. I get it. I get that water rights are still difficult up there. But, good luck having a garden in the southwest corner of New Mexico, or even most of like the southern kind of portion of New Mexico. Good luck having a garden that grows, abundant squash and things like that. You have to be in an area that's got more water supplies for that. And in New Mexico, as near as I could tell, that means being up high, either in the Sangre de Cristos up near Taos and Raton, or near Ruidoso and that kind of area, near the Apache Reservation. Pretty no. I know. I miss them every day. I really do feel like it's kind of one of the tragedies of my life, if I can be honest with you guys. One of the things that I was hoping for, and I talked to my mom one time when I was wintering over at her house when I was still living on the road. But I was wintering at her apartment, and we had a conversation about it. She was like, well, one of the things I kind of hoped was that you would find a place where your soul could settle, where you really feel. And even back then I told her, man, I really feel like that's New Mexico, because I'd spent a lot of that summer in New Mexico, and I fucking loved it. I love the fact that there's so many places in New Mexico where you can get out of the heat. Like, literally, I kept thinking, like, even if I had to live in a cheaper place like Alamogordo compared to Ruidoso, right? Even if I had to live in a place that's ostensibly cheaper, that's got less amenities, or at least has less cool shit, I could still easily, with very little effort, drive up to Ruidoso. It's really not, like, it feels like a way shorter drive than it actually is. I think it's actually Alamogordo to Ruidoso, I think it's like an hour and a half. But to me, it feels like 30 minutes. That drive flies by for me because it's just so fucking goddamn pretty the whole fucking way. It's literally so fucking beautiful, and you go up in elevation like 2,000 or 3,000 feet or something like that, and you get to a way more fucking cooler climate just like that. So it's like, even if I lived in a place like Alamogordo, it's like, okay, it's too hot today. We're going to go up to fucking Ruidoso, and, we're going to go up to the national park or whatever and tool around in a stream or fucking, I think there might be a public pool in Ruidoso, or, well, there probably used to be. I know they had a bunch of wildfires lately, so. Fucking sucks, dude. That place got hit with a bunch of flash flooding a couple weeks back after a bunch of wildfires for the last 2 or 3 years. So that place is basically devastated. Devastated. I hope my friend is okay. I have a couple of friends down there. And I know last time I heard from them, they weren't living down there anymore, but I thought last time I heard something about them that they had moved back, but who the fuck knows? Been to Boston, Mass. I've never been to Boston proper, but I have been on the northern ring of Boston. I've been to like Lowell, Dracut, Tewksbury, obviously Salisbury, and some of the other places up there like that. But I never went into Boston proper. At least it's a dry heat. Humidity is the bane of my existence. Oh man, I live in the deep south in a place where humidity is just like a regular fucking fact of the day. It's something that happens all the time, all year around. It's less persistent in the winter, especially because once it does hit freezing temperatures, it usually freezes before it can affect you, So things do tend to get drier in the winter at that point, but it's like a year-long problem. And it's less noticeable at cooler temperatures, but you really do notice it because on days when it's really fucking humid, even if it's not actually hot, you will perspire and it just won't evaporate off your body. And that's the most fucking frightening thing about it, right? Frightening and annoying. It's annoying because obviously nobody likes to be wiping sweat off their face constantly, but it's frightening because like if you know anything about wet bulb temperature, if you know anything about temperature physics and the human body and its relationship, right, and the relationship between those two things, I should say, then you know that the human body is really only designed to operate up to a certain temperature plus humidity, right? So once it gets up above, I don't remember what the combination of temperature and humidity is, but there's a certain fucking temperature that once you hit it, the human body effectively starts to shut down because it can't self-regulate its temperature anymore. We produce excess heat. Our core temperature is supposed to stay at 98 degrees. And, like if it's 98 degrees and very little humidity, you'll sweat because your body is like, it produces more heat than it actually needs. And so it's constantly trying to shed that heat, which it's normally able to do just by circulating blood through your skin. But if it's 98 degrees and not a lot of humidity, your body will sweat, that sweat will evaporate, and that evaporative cooling is how your body sheds the excess heat that it just passively creates. But if you start cycling up the humidity to 100%, then suddenly that person's perspiration doesn't work anymore, and you start to just fucking die because you start to like slowly kind of cook from the inside out because your body, like I said, produces more heat than it needs. The ambient temperature warms you even further because of that. And so it just becomes this like self-fulfilling cycle that just feeds itself. And as long as you remain in a situation where you can't effectively use your perspiration to cool yourself, you literally just die from that. And so it's kind of like a weird reminder anytime you're working outside in the deep south and the sweat keeps rolling off your face and everything. It's like this weird reminder that if it gets much hotter and you don't eventually go in and you don't keep hydrated, you would literally just pass out and die because your body would cook itself from the inside out because it's trying to exist in a climate that the human body was not made for. Guess where I live? Because you said it like that in Mississippi, start voice training and buy a new wardrobe. Me? Oh, no. Okay, you're not talking to me. Hi, I'm just getting to MTF transition. Any tips? Yeah, holy shit. Like, do some makeup tutorials and try, like, doing some, like, basic stuff in that regard, because it'll make you feel, like, really cool and cute and beautiful, and that's, like, a nice feeling. What somebody suggested to, like, do voice training, do that if your voice bothers you. If you think you have a feminine enough voice already and it's just like a countenance thing, then just be willing to be whoever comes out of your mouth when you are trying to be your true self. Just that's fine. You don't have to voice train to be valid as trans. I don't. You don't have to either. But it is something that a lot of trans women benefit from, so consider it as part of your repertoire. Also, go out shopping. Go to Goodwill. Go to Walmart or something like that. Go to some place where you can get some nice, cute, feminine clothes without spending an arm and a leg, because, it's going to take you a while to figure out your style. So, yeah. That would be my advices. The human heat is low-key dangerous. So, it's not low-key dangerous, it's outright dangerous. And the hotter it gets, the worse it gets. 100% humidity is fine at 86 degrees, because even though your body is like not effectively able to cool itself, the movement of the air helps with that, right? And even if it's not evaporating, you're still receiving your body is able to shed heat through other methods, basically through the passive movement of the air. If it's under 98 degrees, if it's significantly under that, right, like 86 degrees even if it's 100% humidity, if you're not doing too much, as long as you stay hydrated, you can live through that, because the ambient movement of the air around you and everything like that is able to cool you to some degree, right? You still have to take breaks and things like that, but it's not unlivable. But the human body, a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people think we come from rainforests and shit. That's like our most ancient primitive ancestors. The more human-like we got, the more temperate environments we tended to. Good old Texas. Yeehaw. Holy shit. What part of Texas, though? Because Texas is vastly different depending on whether you're talking about West Texas, Southern Texas, Central Texas, East Texas, Northern Texas. I'm in the flat state, enough said. No, that's not enough said. Are you talking about Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, or Minnesota? Or Indiana? Or Illinois? People say that about all kinds of states, but I gotta tell you, I've traveled all over this great country. Indiana is flat as a pancake. Maybe it's less flat towards the southern edge of it. I don't know. I never got down that far. But I gotta tell you what, I went through central Indiana a fucking times in a goddamn thing in that state as near as I could tell, except the occasional set of rolling hills and a bunch of utterly flat fucking terrain. Illinois, mostly fucking flat. Southern Illinois does have some relief, does have some like pretty hill views even. There's like some beautiful shit in Southern Illinois, but most of the state is fucking flatlands. Nobody can tell me different. Kansas. Honestly, Kansas gets a bad rap. There are beautiful parts of Kansas where you can see the hills just rolling out for miles and miles. That to me is not flatland. That's beautiful to me. I think that's I like Kansas, honestly. I don't like its laws. I don't like how fucking backwards and draconian it is in that way. But I like Kansas as far as geography. I thought it was kind of a beautiful state in a weird way. Honestly, one of the hottest goth girls I've ever met in my life, I met at an IHOP in Kansas somewhere. I know that sounds like a weird description of a person maybe, but I don't know how to put it, like I know that's like a thing in people's like society, right? Ohio seemed flat compared to New Hampshire. Oh yeah, dude, Ohio is massively flat too. Ohio has a little topographical relief in the south and kind of like the southeast corner, it's got a little topographical relief in the form of like glacial hills as you go up through the north central kind of part of the state. But it's not much worth considering. It's way fucking flatter in terms of topographical relief than something like New Hampshire, Vermont, even Massachusetts. People might think Mass is flat if they're from like the eastern part of the state, but even if you're from the eastern part of the state, there's enough hills and shit that you should know, right? But as soon as you get towards like the central to western part of Mass, it's fucking hilly as fuck. And the Berkshire Mountains are like a giant barrier mountain range, you know, that has like a couple of different passes through it. That fucking area is so goddamn beautiful, just so fucking pretty. Honestly, if there's any competition for the most beautiful place I've ever lived and seen, it would be Western Massachusetts. If there's any competition for New Mexico in that regard, it would be Western Mass. Now, Western Mass does have a little problem in my mind of me feeling kind of like cooped up on a little bit. Like, I don't know, there's something about living in a place where you know you can just drive for fucking 4 hours and never really like wear out your engine or anything like that going up some kind of tremendous set of hills or anything. You might go up on an incline or something like that in New Mexico, but you can drive for 4 fucking hours and not be all the way through the state, depending on what way you're driving and you're going. And you're going to see so much shit. You're going to pass so much beautiful shit. 200 miles in New Mexico can be like days worth of fun if you have the money to do it. It's just so full of encounters and so full of just like endless, long, stretching roadway that's great for road trips and conversation. Whereas Mass is a little more complicated to navigate, you know? You've got to interrupt your conversation a little more to ask for directions. You've got to be a little more attentive about the road. And, well, I mean, you should always be attentive about the road and everything. But you've got to be even more on your game when you're driving in a place like Mass, where the roads are a little older, the like car dependency isn't as primary and everything. More considerations there. But in terms of just sheer beauty, oh man, there's so many old buildings up there. Towns are designed in a different way up there that make them more accessible to average people and to people that walk. Life seems a little different there than it does anywhere else in America. And there's so many beautiful mountain views in Western Mass. So many cool fucking old structures and buildings and things like that to see. So if New Mexico has any competition, in my mind, it's Western Mass. But like I said, there's just so many beautiful things about New Mexico. Plus, there's a bunch of fucking ancient Native American and ancient Hispanic ones, right? Like, which I guess those are one and the same basically, but there's a bunch of like that kind of thing in New Mexico. There's a bunch of like cultural shit, for lack of a better word, in New Mexico. There's fossil sites in New Mexico. So I don't know, it's like tight competition, right? Colorado is beautiful. I'm not going to say it's not. Colorado is really fucking pretty, but you know what? So is Missouri. I see not as much maybe, but almost as much to love about Colorado in Missouri, just in a different way, different things. You know, and so was Arizona. The Painted Desert is incredibly beautiful. The like mountainous kind of areas towards the southeast corner, very beautiful. And even a lot of the rest of the desert, really pretty out that way. California, super fucking beautiful state. All across the state, even Central Valley has its own weird kind of beauty to it. But none of them, in my mind, outclass any of each other, like as well as Massachusetts and its western quarter in particular, or New Mexico. Never really been to the west side of the country. Furthest west I've gone was South Dakota. Further south was Georgia. Ooh, that's still a pretty fucking wide variety of space to have covered. Yeah, Georgia's a weird state. I haven't been through Georgia a lot, I'll be honest. But it seems like it's pretty. What little bit I did get to explore was certainly pretty, so I can't talk no shit, but I also can't provide very much good information about it. I hear Florida is super flat. I'll be taking their word for it. Let me see here. Kansas. Okay, Kansas, yeah. Houston down south. Oh, right on, right on. Had a good friend from the Woodlands by Houston. Pretty state, dumb, scary people. Ohio seemed flat compared to New Hampshire. Read that. Also, watching sunset for the first time at Flatland estate was pretty cool. A lot different than what I'm used to. Oh, yeah. If you're used to living in the Highlands, the first sunset you see in the Flatlands, especially the first sunset you see when you're actually out where you can see it. That's why people from Highlands will often say, oh, man, too flat for me. And like, oh, man, I wish I could see some mountains and shit like that. And I get that because I'm the same way. I like to see mountains too, but that's one of the, once again, another reason I like New Mexico. There are places where you can get the effect that flatlands give as far as being able to see sunsets while being in an incredibly mountainous place, as long as you have the ability to drive out there before before the sunset happens. Like if you plan to, there's a number of different places that you could go to and watch the sunset and just like watch it play out in front of you. And I've done it and it's beautiful. But, it is something you have to look for. Whereas if you take a place like the area around Bentonville, Arkansas, for example, if you take like the far southeast corner of Missouri or some of the areas in northern Missouri, there are a lot of places that are just so massively flat that you can literally just watch the sunset below the curvature of the earth, and it's beautiful. There's no other word for it. Somewhere far, far beyond where you're seeing that the Rockies are there, the sun's setting over the Rockies at the same time. And there are people in mountain valleys that are losing their light at the same time you're losing yours. But I gotta tell you, seeing a sunset in the mountains is a unique experience too. I think people from the mountains don't often think about it as one, but seeing a sunset from that perspective, really unique situation, because honestly, it's weird watching the sun creep over the mountains, especially if you're down in a tight-knit mountain valley. The effect is less pronounced if the mountains are kind of more distant, right? If you're living like at the base of them, but still pretty far out, like in Boulder or Denver or something like that. But if you're right up on them, if you're in the crevices of the mountains and shit, if you're in like there's certain towns like Leadwood, Colorado or some shit. I forget the name of the town, but Lead something. There's towns in the crevices, or Ruidoso, New Mexico, another example of it. Towns in the crevices of these mountains, very tight-knit mountain ranges and shit, where the effect is way more pronounced. And you can literally watch as the shadow of the mountain creeps over town and causes the streetlights to be lit up. Even though the sky, you look at the sky and the sky ostensibly actually still looks kind of bright. You think about it, if you've ever seen it anywhere else, you think, normally there'd be a lot more light on the ground. And it gives night a very strange effect when you've got mountains like that. I've never seen the ocean. Chad, am I missing out? Oh my god, you're missing out so much. This is the second stream I've seen, and I'm just realizing everyone who was giving you hate in the last one literally subscribed and then sat here for a whole minute just to talk shit. Smart. Yep. I mean, that's the content strategy. That's part of it at the very least. That's not the whole fucking thing, but that's part of the content strategy, is to make people fucking pay for their willingness to troll like shit. Like if people are gonna troll in here, they're gonna fucking subscribe to the channel. And maybe even they'll have an interesting conversation, There's this Ren Fair nearby I'm super excited for. You should be. Those are cool. Yeah, the same thing happened to me this time. Super funny. I actually just took a picture of that exact setting you're describing. I'll send it to you. Nice. Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah. But if you've never seen the ocean, you really are missing out. I mean, nothing compares. It really is like a wonderful, crazy thing to see. It'll make you feel about that big, but in a really good way. I would recommend seeing the ocean. Please go see the ocean. Please go see the ocean. Go see everything. Can I just give you guys a piece of advice? If my life has taught me anything, if there's any reason I'm interesting to any of you guys, it's because I spent about 2 years of my life seeing everything that I could see in America while living like a pauper, I guess. Would have been able to see more if I'd had the money to. But if you have the money to, or even if you don't, take a fucking risk if you're at that point in your life. I'm not saying get off. I'm not saying fucking unplug and go live in a van like I did. But I'm saying if you're in a position, somebody fucking wants to go on a crazy road trip with you and you've got the money, fucking do that shit. Go see the Grand Canyon. Go see the ocean. Go see the sunset over a completely flat marshland. Go feel what a southern summer feels like. Go feel what a northern winter feels like. Go feel what a northern summer feels like. Go feel what a southern winter feels like. Go feel what the wind feels like on your face as it comes off of the Pacific Ocean. I've never gotten to touch the Pacific Ocean itself. My foot was infected, but I've gotten to feel the caress of the cold wind coming off in June and May. Months where you would expect the hottest, driest breezes, accompanied by this wonderful saltiness, this wonderful, cool caress. Go see that shit. Go see the redwoods, man. Go see the Rocky Mountains rising up to greet you as you travel west from, what is it, Texarkana? What is that little town on the border? I feel like it's a combination of two state names, is it not? Is it not like Coloransas or something? Canorado? Canorado, that's what it is. Yeah. Go see what the Rocky Mountains look like as they rise up in front of you as you drive west from Colorado. See what that looks like. Experience that shit for yourself. Experience what it's like to go through a snow in April. Because that's where you're at. You're in the mountains. That's what happens sometimes. Experience what it's like to walk through a walkable city, like some of the places in Boulder. Live some life. Do some stuff. Take some risks. Bring some stories back. Actually, you're interesting because you're well-spoken, articulate, proud trans woman. I mean, fair enough. But, like, a lot of what built that, at least in my opinion, is me going through that really weird experience of having to, like, fend for myself and having to kind of, like, be confident in myself to earn money and kind of having the ability to see so much that made me able to feel confident as a human. Because I can save feeling small for when I see these beautiful things in nature. I don't know, I just feel like this time in my life was very conducive, I guess, to my current personality. But I appreciate that there are different things that people like about me too, you know? Sometimes I struggle to correct misgendering because I'm so genuinely scared to cause a fight. I would be paralyzed. It's sad to see people act that way, especially when we know they can choose to be better. Yeah, it is sad, and it is really fucking annoying, too, because a lot of times you don't want to say anything because you don't want to start a fight. But a lot of times, if it's somebody that I talk to regularly, I will correct them, and it's up to them how they take it. But so far, nobody has taken it as, like, reason to start a fight. Luckily. It could be bad. It could be worse, for sure. The fact she doesn't crack from all the hate is impressive to me. I'd go catatonic. Oh, yeah, no. I mean, I know that ultimately they pay just as much as anybody else does, you know? That their view counts count just as much as anybody else does. That their view hours count just as much as anybody else does, you know? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go, y'all. It's really late for me. I need to go sleep. I need to not sleep all day tomorrow. Thank you guys for hanging out. It is. The mouse is just, it's crazy to meet people like this. Yeah. People are going to be crazy, though. But I will see you guys later. Thank you guys for hanging out. Peace.